Chapter 2836. Not to mention Yi Cheng, who witnessed it with his own eyes. Even Fire Lotus and the others who were listening in the castle thought that Qin Feiyang was serious. What the hell happened? Fire Lotus looked at Yi Zhong and asked. Sigh. Yi Zhong let out a low sigh and explained the situation in detail. The dragons really can't be underestimated. Qin Feiyang shook his head. So what? Facing us, they can only cower in the Divine Dragon Island like a tortoise. Hui sneered. That's the problem. Divine Dragon Island has a sovereign divine weapon. Although the dragons don't dare to attack us, we don't dare to kill our way in either. This has made the situation a deadlock. Yi Cheng shook his head. That's all for later. The most important thing now is to find a way to enter Divine Dragon Island and rescue Shui-Er and father. Yi Zhong's face was full of worry. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then looked up at Yi Zhong and said, Master, you are more familiar with Divine Dragon Island than us. Do you know of any other way to sneak in without anyone knowing? No. If you want to enter Divine Dragon Island, you have to pass through the Inland Sea. But you know the situation in the Inland Sea. And there is a barrier around Divine Dragon Island personally set up by the Dragon God. Even if you pass through the Inland Sea, you can forget about entering Divine Dragon Island. Not to mention sneaking in without anyone knowing. Yi Zhong said. What? A barrier set up by the Dragon God himself. Everyone was shocked. That's right. If you want to pass through this barrier, you have to get the consent of the Dragon Sovereign and the 10 Ancestor Dragons, Yi Zhong said. In other words, only the Dragon Sovereign and the 10 Ancestor Dragons can pass through this barrier freely? Qin Feiyang frowned. Yes. Yi Zhong nodded and said, of course, the princess and the prince can do it too. That's a bit difficult. Qin Feiyang muttered. Fire Lotus said in a deep voice, Qin Dage, there's one more thing that needs to be dealt with immediately. What is it? Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked at Fire Lotus suspiciously. Fire Lotus said, the Chief Pavilion Master's identity has been exposed. I'm afraid the Treasure Pavilion will face a disaster. That's right. Those dragons will definitely take revenge on the Treasure Pavilion. Hui said. Qin Feiyang's eyes darkened. Too many things had happened and he had almost forgotten about this. We must act immediately. If nothing else, we must at least take all the resources from the Treasure Pavilion. Fire Lotus urged. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, then looked up at Yi Zhong and asked, Master, how do you think this matter should be handled? This matter? Yi Zhong pondered for a while and said, actually, there's no need to move. There's no need to move? Everyone looked at Yi Zhong in confusion. The dragon's most powerful weapon is their sovereign divine weapon. However, no one can control this sovereign divine weapon except for the Dragon God. And as far as this old man knows, as long as the Divine Dragon Island is not threatened, this sovereign divine weapon will not make a move. In other words, as long as we don't attack the Divine Dragon Island, this sovereign divine weapon will not interfere. And the dragons are afraid of us because of Feiyang's heaven-defying divine weapon. The dragons don't have any heaven-defying divine weapons, except for the sovereign divine weapon. So, as long as we don't attack the Divine Dragon Island, we will have an absolute advantage, Yi Zhong said. Makes sense. Qin Feiyang nodded. Yi Zhong's eyes flashed, and he said in a deep voice, so this old man's suggestion is to besiege the Divine Dragon Island. Besiege the Divine Dragon Island? Everyone looked at each other. Qin Feiyang was also pondering over the meaning of these words. It means to seal the dragons in the Divine Dragon Island, so that they won't dare to come out. As long as the dragons can't leave the Divine Dragon Island, then the problem you are worried about will naturally not happen, Yi Zhong said. Qin Feiyang laughed and said, good idea. Master is indeed worthy of being called Master. The others also cast looks of admiration at Yi Zhong. Sealing the Divine Dragon Island was equivalent to imprisoning the dragons in the Divine Dragon Island. In this way, no matter how the dragons struggled, they would not be able to run out and harm the Divine Continent. The most important thing was, if they really succeeded in sealing the dragons, it would be equivalent to depriving the dragons of their right to rule the ancient world. Because the dragons were holed up in the Divine Dragon Island, they could no longer interfere with the outside world. In short, this was not a simple operation, but an operation to change the fate of the human race. Sealing the Divine Dragon Island, imprisoning the dragons, and seizing the right to rule the ancient world. This is not a small matter. Yizhong shook his head, looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "The dragon's forces are spread throughout the entire divine continent. With your strength alone, I'm afraid it will be difficult to do." Qin Feiyong smiled, glanced at Fire Lotus and the others, and said with a smile, "This disciple has never been fighting alone." Fire Lotus and the others could not help but smile. Yizhong looked at the group of people, and his heart was extremely complicated. To be honest, in the past he looked down on these people, because among these people there were only a handful of imperishable realm experts. But after really understanding Qin Feiyong, Hui and the others, he understood. These people could not be looked at with ordinary eyes. There were too many possibilities in them. Qin Feiyong turned and walked out of the castle, looked up at the sky, and shouted, "Little brat, give me all the heaven-defying artifacts." "Impudent, if you call me little brat again, don't blame me for falling out with you." Little brat's voice sounded in the sky. Swoosh. Following closely, one by one, the heaven-defying artifacts fell from the sky, exuding a destructive aura. Needless to say, the Sunset Divine Bow was originally beside Qin Feiyong. The other 9 heaven-defying artifacts had entered the land of origin before, and now they were sent out again. In addition, there were a few heaven-defying artifacts. The first was the Rusty Axe. At this moment, the aura it exuded was actually on par with the Sunset Divine Bow and the other heaven-defying artifacts. There was also a Snowflake and a Bloodblade. These two were the heaven-defying artifacts of Mu Tianyang and the Demon Ancestor. They are also in the land of origin. Qin Feiyong was surprised. They went to find that child themselves. I don't know what they said to that child, but he actually agreed to let them enter the land of origin. Fire Lotus smiled. "Long time no see." Qin Feiyong looked at Snowflake and Bloodblade. "Don't try to be close." Snowflake snorted coldly. "We are not close." Bloodblade also said with an incomparably arrogant tone, "What are you talking about? Obediently listen to Qin Feiyong's words, or else don't even think about entering the land of origin in the future." Little Wimp's tender voice once again sounded in the sky. "Well said, well said." Snowflake and Bloodblade hurriedly responded with a hint of flattery. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but laugh. A dignified heaven-defying artifact actually submitted to the obscene might of a Little Wimp. No one would believe it if they said it out loud. It seemed that Little Wimp's condition for allowing them to enter the land of origin was to obediently listen to his orders. "Let all the heaven-defying artifacts out. What do you want to do?" Hui looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. "How can we seal the Divine Dragon Island without the heaven-defying artifact?" Qin Feiyong smiled faintly, looked at the 5-clawed golden dragon, and ordered, "Xiao Jin, take 2 heaven-defying artifacts and head east." "Me? Just me?" The 5-clawed golden dragon was stunned. "As you can see, we are seriously short of manpower, so it's just you for the time being." Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. Hearing this, the 5-clawed golden dragon said, "If it's just me, I'm worried." "There's nothing to worry about. With 2 heaven-defying artifacts in hand, unless the sovereign divine weapon personally comes, even if the 10 great ancestral dragons join forces to kill you, they will only be sending themselves to their deaths." Qin Feiyong said. The 5-clawed golden dragon gritted his teeth and nodded. "All right, this emperor will go east alone." Qin Feiyong gave him 2 heaven-defying artifacts. This was his trust in him. This trust must not be let down. "Hui, you have to go as well. Take 2 heaven-defying artifacts and head south." Qin Feiyong looked at Hui and said, "Fuck. I was planning to go into seclusion." Hui pouted. Qin Feiyong said, "It's a bit sudden, there's no other way." "All right." Hui nodded. Qin Feiyong looked at Fire Lotus and said with a smile, "Girl, this time you have to take action as well." "I'll go west." Fire Lotus smiled slightly. "Thank you." Qin Feiyong smiled gratefully. Now, the only experts by his side were Fire Lotus, Hui, 5-clawed golden dragon, Fengdaji, Yizhong and Yicheng. Yizhong and Yicheng couldn't show up for the time being, so he could only trouble Fire Lotus to take action. Qin Feiyong took out the image crystal again. Buzz. Soon, a shadow appeared. It was Fengdaji. However, at this moment, Fengdaji had disguised himself as a guard of the treasure pavilion. "Young master." Feng Daji bowed. How's the situation in the treasure pavilion? Qin Feiyang asked. Everything is fine. Feng Daji said. All right then, come to the Black Tortoise realm immediately. I have another mission for you. Qin Feiyang said. Yes. Feng Daji responded respectfully, and the shadow quickly dissipated. Not long after, Feng Daji arrived at the Black Tortoise realm and was received by Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang also briefly explained the situation to Feng Daji. Sealing off the Divine Dragon Island and imprisoning the dragons? Feng Daji was also excited when he heard this. This was a shocking feat. It's decided then. Feng Daji, you take 2 heaven-defying artifacts and stay in the north. Xiao Jin, you take 2 heaven-defying artifacts and head east. Hua Yi, you take 2 heaven-defying artifacts and head south. Fire Lotus, you take 2 heaven-defying artifacts and head west. Qin Feiyang said. Understood. The 4 of them nodded. What about you? Yi Zhong looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Of course I'm going to enter the Divine Dragon Island and save the Chief Pavilion Master and the others. What? You want to enter the Divine Dragon Island? Everyone was shocked. That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded. How are you going to enter? Fire Lotus hurriedly asked. My plan has a total of 3 steps. The first step is to rob the 4 great tribes of the Dragon God Palace. The second step is to follow the people of the Dragon God Palace and sneak into the Divine Dragon Island. The third step is to wait for me to come out of the Divine Dragon Island and completely seal off the dragons and deprive the dragons of their control over the ancient world. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, then looked at Qin Rushuang and said, Of course, this may require the help of the ancestors. Help me contact them later. All right. Qin Rushuang nodded. Hori glanced at Qin Rushuang, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Quickly tell me the details. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded and revealed the entire plan in his mind. Chapter 2837. Divine Dragon Island. What? In a hall. Dragon Sovereign was sitting on the throne. The ancestral dragons were standing below him. At the same time, they were all looking at Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon in disbelief. Qin Feiyang killed Yi Zhong and destroyed his soul? Old Black, are you kidding us? Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon regained his senses and asked Ancestral Dragon Black Dragon, Do you think I would joke about this? Besides, I wasn't the only one who saw it. Many people saw it with their own eyes. Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon said, How did this happen? Doesn't Qin Feiyang respect Yi Zhong a lot? He sneaked into the Dragon God Palace to get close to Yi Zhong and persuade Yi Zhong to join the Dragon Slayer Palace. But why did he kill him now? The ancestral dragons couldn't help but frown. Don't you know Qin Feiyang's character? If others are nice to him, he'll be nice to them. But if anyone dares to kill him, he won't show any mercy. Besides, I heard that Qin Batian and Lu Zhengyang also gave the order to kill Yi Zhong if they can't persuade him. Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon said. The other ancestral dragons were still in disbelief. What? Do you think I'm lying? Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon raised his eyebrows. No. Yes, this news is too sudden, too unexpected. If it were someone else it wouldn't be a big deal, but he's Yi Zhong, a phenomenal undead stage expert. He's a peak expert in the entire ancient world, but he died just like that. This is a little hard to accept. The woman in white sighed. But this is the truth. The current Sunset Godly Bao is many times more terrifying than before. Not to mention Yi Zhong. I'm afraid even we won't be able to fight back. Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon said. Whenever he thought of the Sunset Divine Bao and other heaven-defying divine artifacts, he would be filled with rage. Because these were originally the dragon's divine artifacts. But now, however, Qin Feiyang took these artifacts and turned them around to deal with the dragons. The Blood Dragon Ancestor Dragon suddenly looked up at the Dragon Sovereign and asked, Lord Dragon Sovereign, did Yi Zhong leave his divine soul in the Holy Land? I'm not sure. Long Zun shook his head and said, One of you can go take a look. Her tone was very calm. No one knew what she was thinking right now. I'll go. Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon turned around and flew out of the hall. Very soon. He returned and shook his head. There's no sign of Yi Zhong's spirit? No. Something's not right. In the past, He would always leave a wisp of his divine soul in the Holy Land. Why didn't he leave it this time? The white-clothed woman frowned. Revered Dragon said. He probably didn't expect Qin Feiyong to kill him. But this Qin Feiyong is really ruthless. The white-clothed woman cautiously asked, Lord Dragon Sovereign, are you angry? Angry? Why should I be angry? Long Zun said indifferently. The white-clothed woman said, After all, you and Yi Zhong. He was the one who betrayed me first. Those who betray me deserve to die. Long Zun's tone was ruthless and cold. The white-clothed woman looked deeply at Long Zun and asked, Then now that Yi Zhong is dead, what about Yi Xuer and the others? Yi Xuer, Long Zun pondered for a moment then said, Bring them to me. Yes. The white-clothed woman turned and walked out of the hall. Not long later, she brought Yi Xuer and Yi Xuer over. Greetings, Lord Dragon Sovereign. Greetings, Lord Ancestral Dragons. The two of them bowed. After being in Divine Dragon Island for so long, they were naturally no stranger to Long Zun and the various great ancestral dragons. Long Zun said, Didn't you guys always want to know where Yi Zhong went? Now I'll tell you. The two of them immediately raised their heads and looked at Long Zun. Yi Zhong went to look for Qin Feiyong. But just a moment ago he was killed by Qin Feiyong. Long Zun said, What? Yi Xuer and Old Man Ye's body stiffened. Long Zun continued, And his soul and body were destroyed. His soul and body were destroyed. The two of them trembled and shook their heads. That's impossible, Long Zun said. This is the truth. Everyone saw it with their own eyes. There's also news. Yi Cheng also fell into Qin Feiyong's hands. I'm afraid he's also dead now. Grandfather, second grandfather, what's going on? I don't believe it. Yi Xuer shook her head. Old Man Yi also had a look of disbelief. It's very simple. Qin Feiyong wanted to persuade Yi Zhong to leave the dragons and join the dragon-slaying palace, but Yi Zhong didn't agree, so Qin Feiyong wanted to kill him. After all, whether it's Yi Zhong's strength or his status in Divine Land, he's a great threat to the dragon-slaying palace. Long Zun said lightly. It can't be. Yi Xuer's face turned pale. She had seen her grandfather yesterday, but in the blink of an eye, he was gone. One could imagine how big of a blow this was to her. Old Man Yi said in a deep voice, Lord Long Zun, what you said is the truth. How dare you? How dare you doubt Lord Long Zun's words? Ancestral Gregon berated. Long Zun waved his hand at Ancestral Gregon and looked at Old Man Yi. It's absolutely true. Old Man Yi immediately lowered his head, tears rolling down his cheeks. Long Zun said, There's one more thing. Li Buer is Qin Feiyong, and Qin Feiyong is Li Buer. What? The two of them trembled and looked up at Long Zun. Long Zun looked at Old Man Yi and said, Now do you understand? Qin Feiyong helped you to extend your life in order to get close to you. It's him. The disbelief on Old Man Ye's face became even stronger. In his impression, Li Buer was such a good young man. He even hoped that this man would be together with Xuer, but unexpectedly, this man was actually Qin Feiyong in disguise, and he even killed his two sons, Yi Zhong and Yi Cheng. Great-grandfather, this is definitely not true. How can he be Qin Feiyong? Yi Xuer was about to go crazy. She couldn't accept the death of her grandfather and second grandpa, and now she was actually told that Li Buer was Qin Feiyong, and her grandfather and second grandpa both died in his hands. The double blow made her collapse directly. I know that these things have a great impact on you. I was also considering whether to tell you before. But you are after all Yi Cheng and Yi Zhong's relatives. I think you should have the right to know. And this has already happened. It's useless for you to be sad. I hope that you can calm down as soon as possible and then work hard to cultivate. Especially you, Yi Xuer. Your talent is not bad. Coupled with the resources of my dragons and the time array, I believe that you will soon step into the imperishable realm. At that time you can kill Qin Feiyong with your own hands and avenge your grandfather and second grandpa. Long Zun said. Yi Xuer lowered her head and remained silent. She looked like she had lost her soul. Yi Xuer, don't you want to avenge your grandfather and second grandpa? Black Dragon Ancestor Dragon shouted. Yi Xuer's body trembled. She raised her head and looked at Black Dragon Ancestor Dragon, then at Long Zun. A strong hatred gradually rose in her eyes. Although it's a bit cruel, hatred will become the motivation for your growth. You are Yi Zhong's granddaughter. Yi Zhong is loyal to my dragons. Now that he has unfortunately fallen, I will naturally help him take care of you. In the future, you can stay on Divine Dragon Island with peace of mind. If you need anything, or if you encounter any problems in your cultivation, you can go to the various ancestors or come to me, Longzuan said. Thank you, Lord Longzuan. Yi Shuer nodded respectfully. Then you can leave first. Remember not to be rash. With your current strength you are no match for Qin Feiyang. Longzuan reminded. Understood. Yi Shuer responded. She then supported Old Master Yi, turned around and silently walked out. After Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon watched the two of them leave, he turned to look at Longzuan and asked, Why did you keep them? Longzuan sneered. You won't understand how powerful hatred is. But, Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon frowned, I understand your worries. But now Yi Zhong is dead. Moreover, Yi Zhong did die in the hands of Qin Feiyang. So when they meet Qin Feiyang in the future, no matter what Qin Feiyang says, they won't believe him. Longzuan said. Ancestral Dragon Fire Dragon thought for a while and nodded. Makes sense. Don't worry about Yi Shuer and the others first. You guys go to the treasure pavilion first. Before dawn, I want the treasure pavilion to disappear from the ancient world. Longzuan shouted, his entire body emitting a bone-piercing chill. Yes. The various ancestral dragons nodded, their bodies also filled with killing intent. As expected by Qin Feiyang and the others, the dragons would not let the treasure pavilion go. But thinking about it carefully, there was nothing surprising. Without the dragons' permission, would the treasure pavilion have developed to this point? Definitely not. Because the ancient world was the world of the dragons. If the dragons wanted you to live, you could live. If the dragons wanted you to die, you would die. In the eyes of the dragons, the treasure pavilion should be grateful to them. But the chief pavilion master used the resources in his hands to secretly strengthen the dragon-slaying palace. And he was one of the 4 emperors of the dragon-slaying palace. To the dragons, this was no longer a lie but a betrayal. So, once the chief pavilion master's identity was exposed, the treasure pavilion would definitely face a disaster. Not good. However, just as the ancestral dragons were about to set off, a shout came from outside. The ancestral dragons and Longzuan were stunned. They looked up and saw a middle-aged man rushing in. What's the matter? The woman in white asked. Lord Longzuan, Lord Ancestral Dragon, just now news came from the Dragon God Palace in the east, west, south and north. It is said that Qin Feiyang's subordinates carried heaven-defying artifacts and killed their way into the 4 Dragon God Palaces at the same time. The middle-aged man roared. What? Longzuan suddenly stood up. The various ancestral dragons turned pale with fright. The blood dragon Ancestral Dragon rushed forward, grabbed the middle-aged man's clothes and shouted, They killed their way into the 4 Dragon God Palaces. What are they doing? I heard that they are looting the crystal vein and soul vein, and they are completely unscrupulous. The middle-aged man said in horror, Damn you little bastard! Damn you! Damn you! The blood dragon Ancestral Dragon roared. When Yi Zhong created the 4 Dragon God Palaces, he took away a lot of resources from the Dragon God Palaces. Although the Dragon God Palaces had nurtured many supreme experts over the years, these resources were undoubtedly the most important. If these resources were all in the hands of Qin Feiyang, then Qin Feiyang's foundation would not be inferior to the dragons. Chapter 2838. Looting the 4 Dragon God Palaces at the same time. He's too unscrupulous. Does he still have any respect for us dragons? The other ancestral dragons were also burning with anger. This was the first time someone dared to provoke them dragons so openly. Since he has already done so, then he doesn't have any respect for us dragons. He's going to fight with us head-on. Longzuan clenched his fists, and his tone was extremely gloomy. So be it. Are you afraid of him? Blood Dragon Ancestral Dragon roared. Aren't you afraid? It's not like you haven't seen the Sunset Divine Bow and other heaven-defying artifacts. Except for the Sovereign Divine Weapon, we don't have any heaven-defying artifacts now. What do we have to fight with Qin Feiyang? Golden Dragon Ancestral Dragon stared at Blood Dragon Ancestral Dragon gloomily. Then are we just going to be beaten up like this? Are we just going to watch him behave atrociously in our territory? Blood Dragon Ancestral Dragon roared. Our territory? Golden Dragon Ancestral Dragon shook his head and laughed self-deprecatingly. I'm afraid the Divine Land is not our territory now. What do you mean? Blood Dragon Ancestral Dragon raised his eyebrows. You know how smart Qin Feiyang is. Since he dares to make a move, it means that he has full confidence. And although the sovereign divine weapon can restrain him, who can control it except for the dragon god? To be honest, we no longer have the ability to fight him head-on. Golden Dragon Ancestral Dragon shook his head. Blood Dragon Ancestral Dragon immediately looked at Longzuan and said, Lord Longzuan, go and ask the dragon god to use the sovereign divine weapon to kill Qin Feiyang. The other ancestral dragons also looked at Longzuan. The only way they could think of now was to go to the dragon god and the sovereign's side. Longzuan pondered for a while and sighed. He's gone. What? The dragon god left again? Then where did he go? The dragons are in danger. How can he sit back and do nothing? The ancestral dragon said angrily, If I knew where he went, would I still be here worrying? Let's talk about it again. Has he ever cared about the dragons? Never. Longzuan said powerlessly. The 10 ancestral dragons fell silent. What should we do now? If this continues, I'm afraid that the resources of the 4 dragon god palaces will really fall into Qin Feiyang's hands. Furthermore, there are still many human geniuses in the 4 dragon god palaces. These humans are very valuable to us dragons. The middle-aged man looked at Longzun and the other ancestral dragons and said, he had heard of it. The 10 great ancestral dragons' hearts sank. They raised their heads to look at Dragon Sovereign and said, Lord Dragon Sovereign, we can't just sit and wait for death like this. Who? Revered Dragon took a deep breath and shouted, Gather 1,000 half-step imperishable realm humans immediately. Have them attack the west, north, south, and east. There were many imperishable realm experts in the Dragon God Palace, and many of them were humans. To the west, north, south, and east? The ancestral dragons were confused. That's right. Use these 1,000 humans to divert Qin Feiyang's attention. And you guys find a chance to enter the 4 Dragon God Palaces and take back as many resources as you can. And the humans of the Dragon God Palaces, if possible, bring them all back. These humans are very talented. With a bit of training, they can become very good chess pieces. Revered Dragon said in a low voice. What? Have them divert Qin Feiyang's attention? Isn't this using them as cannon fodder? They are imperishable realm experts after all. Isn't it a bit of a pity? The woman in white frowned. Then what do you think we should do? Do you want our people to be cannon fodder? Revered Dragon said angrily. The woman in white fell silent. Using the lives of these 1,000 humans in exchange for the resources of the 4 Dragon God Palaces, and the millions of disciples of the Dragon God Palaces. Act now! Revered Dragon shouted. Yes. The 10 ancestral dragons responded respectfully. They turned around and flew out of the palace. They flew to the sky above a mountain and shouted, Li Chong, bring 1,000 half-step imperishable realm experts out immediately. Whoosh! Soon, in the mountains below, one figure after another flew out. There were men and women, old and young. Without exception, they were all half-step imperishable realm experts. The leader of the group was a middle-aged man. His cultivation level was even higher than the others. He had just reached the imperishable realm. And he was the Li Chong that Ancestral Dragon mentioned. Greetings, Lord Ancestral Dragons. The group of people immediately bowed respectfully. You guys split into 4 groups and kill your way to the east, west, north, and south. Ancestral Dragon of the Fire Dragon shouted. What do you mean? The group of people was surprised. Just do as I say. Remember, go on a killing spree for me. Make as much of a commotion as possible. Ancestral Dragon of the Fire Dragon said. Yes. The 1,000 people responded respectfully. For these people, the words of the dragons were like an imperial edict. They would not hesitate to do anything the dragons asked them to do. Then let's go. Ancestral Dragon of the Fire Dragon ordered. The group of people immediately rushed to the east, west, south, and north. At the same time, East Dragon God Palace. The five-clawed golden dragon was like a demon god, destroying one island after another. Countless spirit veins and crystal veins were taken into his sea of chi. You're crazy. This is the Dragon God Palace. An island master in the distance glared at the five-clawed golden dragon. You're courting death. The five-clawed golden dragon pointed a finger. A surge of divine power surged out and the island master's blood splashed across the sky. And the true body of the island master was a black dragon. Such a fierce method made the others not dare to say anything. Soon, the five-clawed golden dragon rushed to the 10th island. In the blink of an eye, the 10th island was turned into ashes. The disciples on these islands had already run out, so there were no casualties. After taking away all the crystal veins and spirit veins, the five-clawed golden dragon glanced at another island. That island was full of medicinal herbs. However, he did not fly towards that island. His divine might surged out as he shouted, "Where is the palace master of the Eastern Dragon God Palace? Come out immediately." But no one responded. However, in the crowd, there was a black-robed old woman with a look of horror on her face. No one spoke, right? All right. Then don't blame this emperor for being merciless. All of you go to hell for this emperor. The five-clawed golden dragon's ferocious nature erupted. Divine power broke out of his body and surged in all directions like a tide. In an instant, thousands of disciples splattered blood in the sky. Don't kill us. The palace master is here. At that moment, someone pointed at the black-robed old woman and roared, "You're courting death." The black-robed old woman was also furious. She slapped the person who spoke. That person also died at that time. Swish. But at the same time, the five-clawed golden dragon looked at the black-robed old woman. The black-robed old woman's eyes trembled and immediately turned to flee. Humph! The five-clawed golden dragon snorted coldly, and a blood-colored short blade swept out from his body. A terrifying aura destroyed all directions. This was the original heaven-defying divine artifact of the blood dragon ancestor dragon, the blood-colored short blade. When this heaven-defying divine artifact appeared, the black-robed old woman was paralyzed in the air, her face filled with fear. The five-clawed golden dragon landed in front of the black-robed old woman with the blood-colored short blade. He stretched out his hand and said, "Hand over the stone of destiny." That's right. He was looking for the palace master of the Eastern Dragon God Palace for this stone of destiny. Each of the 4 great Dragon God Palace had a stone of destiny. Other than the stone of destiny in the Northern Dragon God Palace, which was in the hands of Yizhong, the other stones of destiny were in the hands of the 3 palace masters. As for why he wanted this stone of destiny, it was naturally for the disciples of the Dragon God Palace. The disciples of the Dragon God Palace were all controlled by the stone of destiny, so as long as he obtained the stone of destiny, it was equivalent to controlling the life and death of these people. However, controlling these people was not Qin Feiyang's original intention. Qin Feiyang's instructions to the five-clawed golden dragon was to destroy the stone of destiny and return everyone's freedom. When the five-clawed golden dragon obtained the stone of destiny, he directly crushed it with his big hand. When the black-robed old woman saw this scene, she immediately glared at the five-clawed golden dragon in shock and anger. What? You're not convinced? Then die. The five-clawed golden dragon smiled coldly. The black-robed old woman was also a supreme expert, but in front of the heaven-defying divine artifact, she was completely unable to withstand a single blow and was directly smashed into pieces by the blood-colored short blade. She died just like that? Countless disciples were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. This was too strong. What are you still standing there for? The stone of destiny has been destroyed. You have already obtained your freedom. Why aren't you screaming? The five-clawed golden dragon shouted. That's right. We're free. Only then did everyone react. Remember, it was Qin Feiyang who gave you your freedom. The five-clawed golden dragon said indifferently and walked towards the island full of medicinal herbs without looking back. Qin Feiyang. It's him. I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect that we would be able to regain our freedom because of him. It was too unexpected. Although they had never seen Qin Feiyang before, because Qin Feiyang had never come to the east, They had long heard of Qin Feiyang's name. This was a vicious and merciless person. But now he actually did such a good thing? Could it be that the rumors were wrong? At the same time, the same thing was happening in the west and the south. But compared to the five-clawed golden dragon's ferocity, the fire lotus and Huayi's methods were much gentler. However, their gentleness was limited to the disciples of the Dragon God Palace. Because they all knew that these disciples had been deceived at first before they entered the Dragon God Palace. Just like Qin Feiyang back then. Before entering the Dragon God Palace in the north, they felt that although the dragons treated humans as cannon fodder, they were also sincerely cultivating them. But after entering the Dragon God Palace, they realized that they were worse than pigs and dogs. Even at that time, after learning about the cruelty of the Dragon God Palace, many people directly collapsed. At that time, those people that had collapsed even attacked Qin Feiyang in order to vent their hatred. So, although the disciples of the Dragon God Palace were pitiful, they were not hateful. The ones who were truly hateful were the dragons. They did not treat humans as humans at all. As for the island masters in the west and south, as well as the palace masters, needless to say, they all died at the hands of Fire Lotus and Huayi, because these people were all real dragons. Naturally, they would not be polite to the dragons. After obtaining the divine stone of fate, they directly killed them. At this time the sky was still dark. Night shrouded the entire divine prefecture. But whether it was the west and east, or the south and north, almost all living beings were awakened. Because the commotion was too great. The five-clawed golden dragon, Huayi and Fire Lotus, all of them did not hide their heaven-defying divine artifacts and directly charged into the Dragon God Palace. It was the same in the north. Chapter 2839. North Dragon God Palace. In the sky above an island, Qin Feiyang stood with his hands behind his back, facing the wind. Next to him, Feng Daji's aura was like a rainbow, and the two heaven-defying divine artifacts were intimidating in all directions. Although there were countless disciples in the distant void, none of them dared to approach. At this moment, the island the two of them were on was the island where the Dragon God Palace grew medicinal herbs. As for the Dragon God Palace's spirit vein and crystal vein, they had long been taken into the Black Tortoise realm by Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang did not even let go of the Divine Weapon Pavilion and the Divine Art Treasury. In other words, the only resources left in the Dragon God Palace were the medicinal herbs on this island. And on the island there was the corpse of a fire dragon. It was responsible for guarding this island, and it was also a supreme expert. As for its death, it naturally died in the hands of Feng Daji. If there are no accidents with the five-clawed golden dragon, Huayi and Miss Fire Lotus, then we have really made a fortune this time. Feng Daji glanced at the corpse of the fire dragon, glanced at the medicinal field below, and chuckled. Don't worry, there won't be any accidents. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, and with a wave of his hand, divine power rolled out, instantly covering the entire island. Following closely, all the medicinal herbs on the island were uprooted and disappeared one after another. This bastard, he's too ruthless. He didn't even leave a single medicinal herb for the dragons. The disciples in the distance muttered, "Go. Kill all the island masters and dismiss all the disciples," Qin Feiyang said. Qin Feiyang did not kill the disciples of the Dragon God Palace. Because he had also stayed in the Dragon God Palace before, he knew what these people had encountered. As long as they were not controlled by the Stone of Destiny, they would no longer work for the dragons. Yes, Feng Daji respectfully responded, then turned around and flew towards the crowd in the distance with a murderous aura. The group of disciples suddenly panicked. Feng Daji shouted, "Young master has ordered, only kill the island master, everyone else scram." Only kill the island master? Everyone was stunned at first, then they looked around. He is the master of the second island. He's the master of the third island. He's the fourth island master. He is the fifth Dao island master. Immediately, all the disciples pointed at the island masters of the major islands. The island masters of the various large islands were hidden in the crowd. Their plan was to wait for Qin Feiyang and Feng Daji to leave before returning to the dragons. Because before Qin Feiyang and Feng Daji left, they didn't dare to do anything. First of all, the deterrence of the two heaven-defying divine artifacts. One heaven-defying divine artifact was enough to sweep through the Dragon God Palace, let alone two. Then it was Qin Feiyang. The masters of the major islands all knew Qin Feiyang's character. Although he was looting the herbs, he was definitely paying attention to the movements around him at the same time. If they took the opportunity to slip away quietly, they would attract Qin Feiyang's attention. So, they planned to hide and wait for Qin Feiyang and Feng Deji to leave before returning to the dragons. But they didn't expect that Qin Feiyang didn't intend to let them go at all. This was especially true with the testimony of these disciples, which exposed their true colors. They immediately fell into despair. Feng Deji, you used to follow us dragons. Please let us go this time for the sake of our past relationship. Yes, yes, yes. We dragons have more or less nurtured you. Please let us go. In the face of death, the masters of the major islands put down their pride as dragons and knelt in the void, looking at Feng Deji pleadingly. Shut up. I used to follow you dragons and harm the people of China. That was the greatest shame of my life. Now you actually dare to boast shamelessly to me about friendship? If you dragons really cared about friendship, why did you use the contract of fate to control us? If you dragons really cared about friendship, why did you use us humans as cannon fodder? To put it bluntly, you are a group of selfish bastards. All of you go. The more Feng Deji spoke, the angrier he became. In the end, he was so angry that his hair stood on end. The two heaven-defying artifacts directly attacked. The masters of the major islands were killed on the spot. At the same time, hearing Feng Deji's words, the disciples who were not far away all fell silent. Yes, in the eyes of the dragons, the biggest role of humans was to serve as cannon fodder. Such a dragon was not worthy of their pursuit at all. In the sky above the island, Qin Feiyang looked at Feng Deji and then looked at the disciples. A smile appeared on his face. It seemed that these disciples were not at the point where they could not be saved. Of course, he could also see that not all disciples had this kind of awareness. A portion of them were still unswervingly loyal to the dragon clan. As for these people, they naturally deserved to die. Feiyang, come to the castle quickly. Suddenly, Qin Rushuang's voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Qin Feiyang's eyes dodged. He took a step and landed in a valley on the island below, avoiding everyone's sight, and then entered the castle. In the castle, not only Qin Rushuang but also a shadow. This figure was none other than Qin Batian. Ancestor. Qin Feiyang bowed. As you expected, the dragon sent a large number of half-step imperishable realm experts to the east, west, south and north. Qin Batian smiled. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and asked how many. Qin Batian said, according to various statistics, there are 1,000 people. So many? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He did expect that Long Zun would send people to the east, west, north and south to cause a bloody storm to divert his attention, because he believed that Long Zun wouldn't watch the 4 dragon god palaces be destroyed in his hands. And now, facing these heaven-defying divine artifacts in his hands, Long Zun had no other choice but to use the tactic of diverting the target. Therefore, before the operation, Qin Feiyang asked Qin Rushuang to send a message to the ancestor, asking him to lead the people of the Dragon Slayer Palace to lurk near important cities like Holy Dragon City. Because if he wanted to quickly cause a big storm to divert his attention, large cities like Holy Dragon City were the best targets. And Qin Feiyang's arrangement could also protect these innocent creatures from the disaster of a tragic death. But what Qin Feiyang didn't expect was that the dragons would send 1,000 half-step imperishable realm experts. This was really a shocking number. Qin Batian said, there's also a supreme expert who just reached the imperishable realm. This person is called Li Chang, and he's quite strong. Li Chang, Qin Feiyang muttered and asked, what about the great ancestral dragons? I didn't see any of the great ancestral dragons. Qin Batian shook his head. I think they should be planning to hide in the space divine object first, and wait for Li Chang and the other cannon fodder to kill their way into the major cities. Then, when I go to support them, they will take the opportunity to sneak into the 4 great dragon god palaces and take away the resources and disciples of the dragon god palaces. Qin Feiyang said. Qin Batian asked, then how are you guys doing now? I'm done here. But I don't know about Fire Lotus, Hui, and the five-clawed golden dragon. After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, he looked at the training room beside him and shouted, Dan Wangkai. Dan Wangkai ran out with a medicinal fragrance all over his body. Obviously, he was refining pills. Immediately send a message to Fire Lotus, Hui, and the five-clawed golden dragon and ask them about their progress. Qin Feiyong said. All right. Dan Wangkai nodded and immediately took out the image crystal. Before the operation, Qin Feiyong had thought that there might be all kinds of sudden changes, so he had everyone establish a contract bridge with each other to facilitate communication. Qin Batian said. Then what's our next step? Stop them and don't let them enter the city. I will also rush to the Holy Dragon City immediately. It's best to keep these people alive and try to subdue them as much as possible, Qin Feiyong said. After all, they were all undead stage experts. If they could all be subdued, then their overall strength would instantly increase by countless times. All right. Qin Batian nodded. When Qin Baishan's shadow dissipated, Qin Feiyong turned to look at Dan Wangkai and said, Tell me about Fire Lotus's progress later. After that, Qin Feiyong looked up at the second floor and shouted, Li Changhe. Li Changhe also immediately walked out. Come with me. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and appeared in the valley with Li Changhe. Young master, what can I do? Li Changhe was suspicious. Of course, Qin Feiyong took out an illusory form pill and gave it to Li Changhe. What does this mean? Li Changhe looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. This is the key step of the plan. You will disguise yourself as me and go to the Holy Dragon City with Feng Daji. Qin Feiyong said. I will disguise myself as you? Li Changhe was slightly stunned and frowned. What about you? Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Of course I will take the opportunity to sneak into the Divine Dragon Island. That's right. This was his plan to enter the Divine Dragon Island. Let Li Changhe disguise himself as him and appear in the Holy Dragon City ostentatiously. This way, the ancestral dragon would definitely lower his guard and enter the Dragon God Palace. At that time, Qin Feiyong could follow these ancestral dragons and sneak into the Divine Dragon Island. As for how to get out of the Divine Dragon Island after finding Yi Shui'er and the other two, he hadn't thought about it yet. Let's sneak into the Divine Dragon Island first. You really want to go? Li Changhe raised his eyebrows. Would I joke about something like this? Qin Feiyong smiled slightly and said, Hurry up. All right. Li Changhe nodded. He knew Qin Feiyong's temper. Once he decided on something, he would not change his mind. Thus, he took the illusory form pill and changed into Qin Feiyong's appearance. Li Changhe had followed Qin Feiyong for so long, so he knew Qin Feiyong very well. Moreover, his cultivation was the same as Qin Feiyong's. Therefore, if he were to disguise himself as Qin Feiyong, there would be almost no flaws. At the same time, Qin Feiyong also took an illusory form pill and turned into an ordinary-looking young man. Next, Qin Feiyong then put on the clothes of the Dragon God Palace and pretended to be an ordinary disciple. Li Changhe, on the other hand, put on Qin Feiyong's clothes and tidied up his expression. That moment, a living Qin Feiyong appeared in front of Qin Feiyong's eyes. Qin Feiyong sized up Li Changhe for a moment. Even he himself could not see any flaws, so he could completely pass off as the real deal. Although your current temperament and appearance are exactly the same as mine, other things, such as divine power and divine arts, cannot be changed, so you must not make a move. Qin Feiyong warned. I know. Li Changhe nodded. Then go. Qin Feiyong smiled slightly. Chapter 2840. Be careful. After Li Changhe finished speaking, he soared into the air and flew towards Feng Daji. He asked, Are you done? Yes. Feng Daji nodded. Okay. I just received news that Long Zun has sent 1,000 Eternal Realm Masters. Let's go to the Holy Dragon City and have a look. Li Changhe. What? 1,000? Feng Daji was shocked. Yes. But everything is as I expected. Since these people are here, they can forget about going back. Let's go. Li Changhe waved his hand. Feng Daji immediately opened an altar and jumped on it with Li Changhe. Li Changhe was really good at pretending. Even Feng Daji didn't see through it, let alone the others. What should we do now? Countless disciples stood in the void and looked at the devastated dragon god temple. For a moment they were all at a loss. There was a moment of silence. Someone said, "It wasn't easy to regain our freedom. Of course we should leave this damn place." That's right. We can't believe the nonsense of the dragons anymore. And I have to tell the true face of the dragons to everyone around me. These bastards simply don't treat us as human beings. People kept echoing him, full of anger. That's a nice way to put it. Do you think you can be a decent person after leaving the dragons? Let me tell you, the dragons are the rulers of this land after all. No matter where you go, your fate is in the hands of the dragons. Someone sneered. Obviously, those who could say such words were undoubtedly the most loyal pawns of the dragons. I would believe that in the past. But now, look at Qin Feiyang. He has been in the Dragon God Temple for so long. Have the dragons ever appeared? No. What does this mean? It means that the dragons are afraid of Qin Feiyang now. What's more, Qin Feiyang is not alone. He has a lot of heaven-defying divine artifacts and the dragon-slaying temple behind him. I think it won't be long before the ruler of the divine land changes. Someone snorted. Change? You're too naive. The dragons of the Dragon Slayer Palace and the Dragon Clan have been fighting for so many years. Is it effective? Not at all. They only talk big. When they really meet the dragons, it's like a mouse meeting a cat. As for Qin Feiyang, although he has many heaven-defying divine weapons, don't forget that the dragons have sovereign divine weapons. No matter how many heaven-defying divine weapons there are, they're nothing but cannon fodder in the face of a sovereign weapon. Everyone argued endlessly. At this moment, Qin Feiyang had also left the valley and quietly blended into the crowd. He didn't say anything and just calmly watched the people arguing. Young Master, Hui and the others have replied. Everything is progressing smoothly. Dan Wangsai's voice suddenly sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Very good. Send them to reinforce the Dragon Slayer Palace and intercept the dragon's minions. Qin Feiyang thought. All right. Dan Wangsai responded and immediately sent a message to Fire Lotus and the other two. Let's not talk about it anymore. If you guys are willing to continue being the dragon's lackeys, then you guys can continue. Anyway, I don't want to. Goodbye. A young man snorted coldly, turned around, opened an altar, and left without looking back. I'm leaving too. I've had enough of this kind of life that's worse than pigs and dogs. With one person taking the lead, the others would quickly make a decision. At this moment, most of the people had opened the altar and left the Dragon God Palace. The entrance to the Dragon God Palace had already been destroyed by the heaven-defying divine weapons when Qin Feiyang and Feng Daji came in, so they could now enter and leave as they pleased. Those who stayed were naturally the most loyal minions of the dragons. And Qin Feiyang was also there. North Inland Sea. A group of people rushed out and entered the Dragon God Mountain range. The person in the lead was Li Chang. 1,000 people were divided into 4 waves, heading to the north, west, south, and east. In other words, there were 250 people in each wave. 250 people, 250 supreme experts. Such a terrifying lineup was enough to flatten the north. Li Chang stopped and shouted, "Do you still remember Lord Ancestral Dragon's instructions?" Yes. More than 200 people nodded. All right then. Now we'll split into 3 teams and head to Holy Dragon City, Serpent City, and Snow Dragon City. Let go of me and kill. Li Chang shouted. Yes. Everyone replied respectfully, their killing intent overflowing. Li Chang, as a human, you actually helped the dragons to harm your own kind. You're really awe-inspiring. Suddenly, an angry shout rang out. Li Chang was shocked and immediately turned to look. In the void in front of him, a middle-aged man appeared out of thin air. Qin Badian. Immediately, more than 200 people's faces changed. If that wasn't Qin Badian, who could it be? His 7-foot body was tall and straight like an iron pine. He held a sharp broken sword in his hand, and his entire body was filled with a murderous aura. Why are you here? Li Chang was shocked. Not only is Emperor Qin here, I'm here too. Behind the group of people, a cold voice suddenly sounded. Li Chang and the others looked and saw a golden figure appear in the void behind them. It was a middle-aged man with a square face. His height was different from ordinary people, and he was more than 3 meters tall, and in his hand, he was holding a golden harpoon. This harpoon was 5 to 6 meters long and seemed to be cast in gold, emitting a dazzling divine light. This person's body was shining with golden light. Standing in the void, he was like a god descending to the world, and a great pressure enveloped all directions. Mermaid Emperor. Li Chang's face changed again. That's right. This person was the legendary first-generation Mermaid Emperor. Why? Why are you ambushing here? Could it be that the dragons have spies? Spies? Li Chang looked at the Mermaid Emperor and Qin Batian and roared in shock and anger. He never thought that he would meet Qin Batian and the Mermaid Emperor halfway. The two of them were both peak experts of the ancient realm. Qin Batian, needless to say, was at the Great Achievement Eternal Realm, comparable to the Ancestral Dragon. And the Mermaid Emperor was also at the Minor Achievement Eternal Realm. The most important thing was that Qin Batian also had a heaven-defying divine artifact and the power of law. Just based on Qin Batian's strength alone, it was enough to kill them in an instant. Spies? Spies. If we really have spies and spies on Divine Dragon Island, our Dragon Slayer Palace would have already taken action. Qin Batian said. Li Chang said. Then how did you know we would come to the north? Isn't that simple? Fei Yang has caused such a big commotion. Will the dragons just sit back and watch? Of course not. Since they won't, they will naturally send people to the north, east, west, and south. So we will wait here waiting for you to come to our door. Qin Batian said lightly. Damn it. Li Chang cursed and roared, everyone, break out with all your strength. Boom. More than 200 people suddenly released their auras, and the earth and void here collapsed and shattered. Stubborn. Qin Batian snorted coldly, and the power of the purple gold divine dragon roared out. A 10,000-foot barrier instantly appeared, enveloping everyone and sealing the divine power of Li Chang and the others. After all, there were 250 supreme experts. If their auras were not sealed, not to mention the Dragon God Mountain Range, even the outer Holy Dragon City would be destroyed. Great Achievement Eternal Realm. You have suddenly reached the Great Achievement Eternal Realm. Li Chang's face was full of fear. Not to mention Qin Batian's heaven-defying divine artifact and the power of law. Just this cultivation was enough to make them despair. Just stay here quietly. If you dare to make a move, kill without mercy. The Mermaid Emperor said coldly, then landed beside Qin Batian and said, My lord, what's next? Qin Batian glanced at the group and said, Next, let's wait for Fei Yang to deal with it. Damn it. Qin Batian and the Mermaid Emperor, these two bastards, actually appeared here. Not far away in the void. The Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon and the Blood Dragon Ancestral Dragon hid in the spatial divine item and looked at this scene with a gloomy face. Their original plan was to let these people cause trouble in the major cities to attract Qin Fei Yang's attention. But now, these people were stopped by Qin Batian and the Mermaid Emperor. Wasn't the plan ruined? Quickly send a message to Lord Dragon Sovereign and ask if there is a second plan. The Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon said in a deep voice. The Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon nodded and took out the image crystal. But at this moment, whoosh! Accompanied by the sound of something breaking through the air, two figures sped over like lightning. Wait! The Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon reached out to stop the Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon and said, Look! It's Qin Fei Yang. The Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon looked up, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Outside, Qin Batian and the Mermaid Emperor also turned to look, and a smile immediately appeared on their faces. Li Changhe, who was disguised as Qin Fei Yang, flew over and bowed. Greetings, ancestors. Greetings, Emperor Qin, Mermaid Emperor. Feng Daji also bowed respectfully. No need to be so polite. Qin Batian waved his hand and smiled. He pointed to Li Chang and the others who were trapped in the realm and said, Fei Yang, these people have been stopped. You can do as you see fit. Li Changhe looked up. To be honest, he didn't know what to do. Qin Fei Yang meant to subdue these people, but how? These people were all controlled by the fate contract, and with his ability there was no way to remove them. This was truly a difficult problem. What's wrong? Qin Batian looked at Li Changhe suspiciously. Li Changhe quivered and shook his head. Nothing, nothing. Then, Li Changhe raised his head and looked at Li Chang and the others and said, "Answer me, do you want to die or live?" Hearing this, Li Chang and the others looked at Li Changhe with hesitation. This is bad. Seeing the scene outside, the black dragon ancestral dragon's face changed slightly. He immediately looked at the fire dragon ancestral dragon and said, "Quickly send a message, report to Lord Dragon Sovereign. Fire dragon ancestral dragon, awakening image crystal." Soon, Long Zun's figure appeared. The two of them quickly explained the situation to Long Zun. Long Zun's heart also sank and said, "While Qin Feiyang is not in the Dragon God Palace, quickly go to the Dragon God Palace and see how many people and resources are left." "Yes, sir." The two of them responded and immediately controlled the spatial divine object, flying towards the Dragon God Palace. Outside, Li Changhe looked at the reaction of Li Chang and the others, and couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile in his eyes. Since they were hesitating, then it shouldn't be difficult to subdue them. There must be people from the Dragon Slayer Palace lying in ambush. In other words, the plan that she had come up with on the spot was of no use at all. Instead, she had sacrificed so many supreme experts for nothing. Young Master has already predicted what you want to do. To be more precise, you've been led by the nose by the young Master. So you better stop struggling. Just stand there and take the beating. Fengdaji sneered. Long Zun looked at Li Changhe, his eyes flashing with shocking killing intent. Although Li Changhe looked calm on the surface, he was panicking inside. Because after all, he was not the real Qin Feiyang. Moreover, because Long Zun was too strong, anyone would feel an instinctive fear when facing Long Zun, and Li Changhe was no exception. Therefore, Li Changhe was feeling very uncomfortable now. While suppressing this fear, he had to face Long Zun head-on. He could not show any flaws. At the same time, the Dragon God Palace. Most of the disciples had already left. But even if there was only a small portion left, there were still hundreds of thousands of people. Qin Feiyang was mixed in the crowd, watching all of this with disappointment in his eyes. It seemed that no matter what he did, he could not make these people turn back. However, at this moment he did not have any killing intent. Because if these people were all dead, then when the ancestral dragon came, there would be no way to act. Boom! Suddenly, two terrifying auras appeared. "They're finally here." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, looking up. He saw Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon and Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon appearing out of thin air. Damn it, all the resources are gone. Looking at the empty Dragon God Palace, the two of them were furious. "Greetings, Lord Ancestral Dragon." This was all done by Qin Feiyang. Not only did he snatch all the resources, he also killed the island masters. Lord, this Qin Feiyang truly deserves to die 10,000 times. A group of people shouted in anger. Only these few people are left? Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon looked at the disciples below, his eyes filled with anger. These humans were indeed a bunch of ingrates that couldn't be raised properly. The rest is the essence. Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon transmitted his voice. Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon was stunned and nodded. That's right, in the face of such a situation, they still chose to stay, which means that they are truly loyal to us dragons. These people can be trained. Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon smiled, looked at the disciples below and said, "Thank you for your loyalty. We dragons will not treat you unfairly. Now we will bring you to Divine Dragon Island. Divine Dragon Island has better cultivation resources than here. Thank you, Lord Ancestral Dragon, for your training." Hundreds of thousands of people were excited, kneeling in the air to thank him. Qin Feiyang also squatted down, pretending to roar. "Then you guys go to this sovereign space divine object first." Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon waved his hand. An invisible force descended, and hundreds of thousands of people disappeared in an instant, including Qin Feiyang. This also meant that his plan to sneak into Divine Dragon Island had succeeded. Dragon God Mountain Range. At this moment it was extremely quiet. Although Feng Daji was holding onto the two heaven-defying divine artifacts, eager to give it a try, Li Changhe did not dare to make a move without permission. Buzz! Suddenly, the image crystal in Long Zun's arms rang. Long Zun felt it, but he did not take out the image crystal. He lowered his head and looked at Li Changhe, saying, "Little bastard, if you have the ability, then come and kill your way to Divine Dragon Island." After saying that, he waved his hand and swept up Li Chang and the others. He turned around and disappeared into the inner sea without looking back. "Don't even think about leaving," Feng Daji shouted. Grabbing the two heaven-defying divine artifacts, he was ready to chase after them. "Don't chase." Li Changhe immediately pulled Feng Daji back. "Young master, why don't you chase?" Feng Daji was startled and frowned. Li Changhe shook his head. "What is Long Zun's cultivation level? What is your cultivation level? Can you catch up?" "But what else did Feng Daji want to say?" "Don't say it yet." Li Changhe raised his hand to stop Feng Daji, turned to look at Qin Batian and asked, "Do you have a space divine object?" Qin Batian nodded. Li Changhe said, "Then let's go to the space divine object to talk." "All right." Qin Batian nodded and brought the Mermaid Emperor, Li Changhe, and Feng Daji to a stone room that was about 100 feet tall. Li Changhe scanned his surroundings. Inside the space divine object, even if the dragons had people lurking nearby, they would not be able to hear their conversation. Then, Li Changhe looked at Feng Daji and said, "Not to mention you, I'm afraid that even the Qin Emperor does not have the confidence to catch up to Long Zun." After saying that, Li Changhe looked at Qin Batian and said, "Qin Emperor, am I right?" Long Zun's cultivation is too strong. In terms of speed, no one can compare to her. If we want to keep her, we have to kill her when she's unprepared. Or she can stay behind and fight us head-on." Qin Batian nodded. Feng Daji's face was filled with unwillingness. But suddenly, he turned to look at Li Changhe and asked suspiciously, "Wait, why did you call him Qin Emperor?" In the past, the young master had always called Qin Batian ancestor. Qin Batian and the Mermaid Emperor looked at each other, and also looked at Li Changhe suspiciously. "This is the second reason why I didn't let you chase after her." Li Changhe smiled bitterly at Feng Daji, took out a facial restoration pill and threw it into his mouth, immediately restoring his true appearance. "Old Li, why are you here?" Feng Daji was stunned. Qin Batian and the Mermaid Emperor were also stunned. "The young master asked me to take his place." "The young master is not here." "I don't have the guts to let you take the risk to chase after Long Zun." Li Changhe shook his head. "If the young master is not here, then where is he?" Feng Daji asked. "Didn't the young master say that he was going to the Divine Dragon Island to save Yixuer and the other two? I guess he has already entered the Divine Dragon Island." Li Changhe. "He really went?" Feng Daji's expression froze. "What? He entered the Divine Dragon Island?" Qin Batian and the Mermaid Emperor were also shocked when they heard this. "Yes." Li Changhe nodded. Qin Batian frowned and said, "Why didn't he tell me about this when we were discussing it? The young master knew that if you knew that he had entered the Divine Dragon Island, you would definitely stop him. Therefore, he only told you about the plan to seal off the Divine Dragon Island and snatch the resources of the Dragon God Palace. He also ordered us not to reveal this to you before he entered the Divine Dragon Island." Li Changhe sighed. "Nonsense, this is really nonsense. Rushuang, how could she hide such an important thing from me?" Qin Batian was furious. "Miss Rushuang knows the young master's temper too well. She knew that she couldn't stop the young master, so she hid it from you with us." Li Changhe. "You guys have no idea how terrifying the Divine Dragon Island is. Feiyang's trip is a one-way trip." Qin Batian looked at Li Changhe and Feng Daji helplessly and sighed. "The Divine Dragon Island is even more terrifying now. There is a barrier set up by the Dragon God." The Mermaid Emperor said. "Yes. What should we do now?" Qin Batian rubbed his forehead, his face full of worry. Li Changhe said firmly, "I believe the young master will have a way." "I believe so too." Feng Daji nodded, then looked at Qin Batian and said, "Send me out. From now on, my duty is to seal off the northern inland sea." Qin Batian glanced at Feng Daji, then turned to the Mermaid Emperor and said, "You also go back to the dragon-slaying palace immediately and mobilize all the divine generals to protect the people of the divine prefecture." "Okay." The Mermaid Emperor nodded. Li Changhe also took a phantom elixir and changed into Qin Feiyang's appearance again. Then, Qin Batian led the four of them out of the spatial treasure. The Mermaid Emperor opened an altar and left. Qin Batian and Li Changhe accompanied Feng Deji to the coast of the inland sea. Old Feng, your task is very difficult. Li Changhe glanced at the sea and said to Feng Deji, as long as I am here, the dragons will not be able to step into the inland sea. Feng Deji waved his hand, and two heaven-defying divine artifacts rushed into the sky, and the terrifying divine power sealed off the entire northern coast. Qin Batian looked at Feng Deji, his eyes full of admiration. Even in the dragon-slaying palace, there weren't many people with such courage and boldness. Feiyang, this brat, was indeed a very outstanding leader. Then, Qin Batian raised his head and looked in the direction of the divine dragon island, his eyes full of worry again. Chapter 2842. East, West and South. Just as Feng Deji said, the people who went to these three places were not so lucky. A total of 750 people fell into the hands of the Dragon Slayer Palace and the Fire Lotus. East. There was also a rolling mountain range outside the inner sea. At this moment, the flames of war burned. A huge barrier sealed off the entire mountain range. A middle-aged man stood outside the barrier. This man was Lu Zhongyang. This barrier was set up by Lu Zhongyang. As a great achievement imperishable realm expert, it was too easy to imprison a half-step imperishable realm expert. Just inside the barrier, the five-clawed golden dragon was like a demon god, crazily slaughtering the 250 half-step imperishable realm experts. Don't kill me, I beg you. The five-clawed golden dragon's methods were originally very fierce. Every time he attacked, a half-step imperishable realm expert would fall. Blood dyed the barrier red. The five-clawed golden dragon was crazily killing, but the people who were killed were terrified to the extreme. They were not weak. Even in the entire ancient world, a half-step imperishable realm cultivator could be considered a peak expert. In the eyes of the nine heavens realm paragon gods and divine lords, they were like gods. If the five-clawed golden dragon did not have a heaven-defying divine artifact, the 250 half-step imperishable realm experts could still fight. After all, the five-clawed golden dragon's cultivation was only a small realm higher than theirs. Initial achievement imperishable realm. But now, the five-clawed golden dragon had two heaven-defying divine artifacts in his hands. Killing them would be as easy as flipping his hand. This was the terror of heaven-defying divine artifacts. Not to mention those weaker than the five-clawed golden dragon. Even those with higher cultivation would still die. However, these people's pleas did not make the five-clawed golden dragon feel any pity. Clang! With a wave of his hand, a golden sword appeared. The sword was 3 fingers wide and 1 meter long, with a golden dragon engraved on its shoulder. This sword was the golden dragon ancestor dragon's heaven-defying divine artifact. The five-clawed golden dragon grabbed the sword and slashed. It did not revive. But even if it did not revive, its edge was unstoppable. These half-step imperishable realm experts also had divine artifacts, but the highest was only a paragon divine artifact. Clang! How could a sovereign-grade divine artifact be compared to a heaven-defying divine artifact? The divine weapon in the hands of one of them shattered on the spot. The golden battle sword descended, and that person was instantly cleaved into 2 halves. His divine soul was directly annihilated. Bastard, I'll kill you. Seeing this, suddenly a destructive aura rushed out of his body. Self-detonation. Humph. You also need to have a chance to self-destruct. The five-clawed golden dragon waved its hand, and another heaven-defying divine artifact, the blood-red dagger, shot out. It instantly sank into the man's chi sea. A bloody hole appeared and blood gushed out. Following closely, the five-clawed golden dragon waved its golden battle sword and killed that person. The whole process was smooth and without any hesitation. They didn't even have the chance to self-detonate, and the group of people fell into despair. The five-clawed golden dragon slashed one by one, and the 200 or so people quickly fell to the ground, completely wiped out. Above the barrier, Lu Zhengyang's heart ached when he saw this. These people were all half-step invincible realm. If they all joined the Dragon Slayer Palace, the overall strength of the Dragon Slayer Palace would instantly skyrocket. What's there to feel sorry for? Young Master isn't here. Even if we keep them, there's no way to break their fate contract. Besides, do you think Long Zun will be stupid enough to give them to us? Not surprisingly. She will either come personally to save these people, or directly activate the fate contract to erase their divine souls. In short, she would rather destroy them than let us get such a big advantage. The five-clawed golden dragon saw through Lu Zhongyang's thoughts and said coldly, "Even so, seeing them fall one after another with my own eyes, I can't help but feel sorry." Lu Zhongyang sighed. As long as they are humans who follow the dragons, they deserve to die. There was no sympathy in the five-clawed golden dragon's eyes. He stepped out and landed on the coast. Dragons, looking in the direction of the divine dragon island, the five-clawed golden dragon's eyes flashed coldly, and he shouted, "Seal!" Clang! The blood-red short blade and the golden battle sword immediately soared into the sky. A terrifying divine might that could topple mountains and overturn the seas quickly sealed off the entire eastern inland sea. Western region. Fire Lotus also assisted the people of the dragon-slaying palace in capturing the 250 people alive. On the coast, Fire Lotus wore a mask as she stood in the air, looking in the direction of the divine dragon island, her face full of worry. She would never doubt Qin Feiyang's decision. Since Qin Feiyang had decided to go to the divine dragon island, then he would definitely go. And she would not persuade him, because she understood Qin Feiyang better than Li Changhe and the others. Rather than persuade him, it was better to silently support him. It was just that the divine dragon island was a dragon's pool and tiger's den. Qin Feiyang going alone to take the risk was truly worrying. "Miss Fire Lotus, what are you looking at?" A middle-aged man dressed in black walked over. He was about 1.8 meters tall, and his dark pupils were like two black holes, seemingly able to capture one's soul. Also, his cultivation was extremely terrifying. He was apparently an undead overlord at the initial success stage. "Nothing." Fire Lotus shook her head and smiled. Clang! As she waved her hand, two heaven-defying divine artifacts flew into the sky. One of them was the rusty axe. The other was a white thin sword that looked like it was carved out of jade. It was the heaven-defying divine artifact of the white dragon ancestor dragon. The power of the two divine artifacts spread in all directions and completely sealed off the western inland sea. "I didn't expect heaven-defying divine artifacts to be able to grow." The man in black shook his head. "That's why these heaven-defying divine artifacts followed Qin Dage." Fire Lotus smiled and turned around to look not far away. The ground there was shattered. Apparently there had been a thrilling battle before. At this moment, the 250 people sent by the dragon ancestor were standing together awkwardly. There was a barrier around them that trapped them. Fire Lotus asked Senior Black Wing Emperor, "What should we do with these people?" "That's right." This man in black was the first Black Wing Emperor, who had followed Qin Badian for many years. "Senior." The Black Wing Emperor shook his head and smiled bitterly. "In terms of seniority, I'm still your junior. But you're stronger than me now," Fire Lotus said. The Black Wing Emperor shook his head and smiled. "Let's address each other as equals." Fire Lotus thought for a moment and nodded. "That's fine." The Black Wing Emperor looked at those people and said, "I'm afraid we'll have to wait for Feiyang to deal with this." "Qin Dage," Fire Lotus murmured. Qin Dage might have already entered Divine Dragon Island. Waiting for him to deal with this was unrealistic. Just as Fire Lotus was pondering, those 250 people suddenly screamed at the same time, their expressions extremely painful. Then they fell to the ground one by one and died. "What's going on?" Fire Lotus and the Black Wing Emperor turned pale with fright. The Black Wing Emperor released his divine will and checked. He exclaimed, "Their divine souls have been erased. Their divine souls have been erased." Fire Lotus's gaze trembled. She suddenly turned around and scanned the sky above the inland sea. Suddenly, Fire Lotus's gaze locked onto a certain spot in the sea, and a cold light surged in her eyes. A blurry figure stood amidst the rolling waves. Longzuan. The Black Wing Emperor also looked over, and his pitch-black eyes immediately surged with a cold light. That's right. That blurry figure was Longzuan. The two heaven-defying divine weapons, the axe, had already sealed off the coast. She did not dare to take the risk to rescue them, so she simply erased those people's divine souls. Her methods were truly ruthless. Looking at Fire Lotus and the Black Wing Emperor from afar, Longzuan did not say anything and directly disappeared. Soon, the same scene happened. More than 200 people who were imprisoned fell to the ground at the same time, dead. Huai stood together with a middle-aged man in white. When he saw this sudden scene, he immediately turned around and scanned the sea. Soon, they also saw Longzuan in a certain part of the sea. Go and tell Qin Feiyang not to think that he can do whatever he wants just because he has a heaven-defying divine weapon. The good show is yet to come. Longzuan left these words and disappeared without a trace. The good show is yet to come? Huai raised his eyebrows. The man in white next to him smiled gently and said, "Even a rabbit will bite when it's cornered, let alone dragons. Then I'd like to see what tricks they have up their sleeves." Huai smiled coldly, turned to look at the man in white, and said, "White Wing Emperor, I alone am enough here. Go and find Qin Batian and ask him to immediately send people to assist the city lords of the major cities to completely eliminate the claws of the dragons of the divine land." Okay. The man in white nodded, opened an altar and left. After Huai watched the man in white leave, he looked up in the direction of Divine Dragon Island and sneered, "Dragons, your end is coming." Not long after, Holy Dragon City, a black armored masked man appeared, and his terrifying aura was not concealed at all. Whoosh! The black armored man directly rushed into the city lord mansion. "Greetings, Lord Divine General." Zhang Dafei immediately greeted him. "Where's the messenger of the dragons?" The black armored man asked. After learning about the movements of the dragon god palaces, he has already gone into hiding. But I have sent people to secretly follow him. Do you know where he is now? Zhang Dafei said. The messenger of the dragons in Holy Dragon City was the former palace lord of the Dragon God Palace. Okay, bring me there. The black armored man's eyes flashed with a cold light, and his entire body was filled with a murderous aura. Zhang Dafei was stunned and asked, "Lord, are you going to attack the dragons?" "Yes. The Qin Emperor has ordered all the major cities of the Divine Land to completely eliminate the claws of the dragons," the black-armored man said. "Okay, I've been waiting for this day." Zhang Dafei was extremely excited and asked, "What about the young lord now?" "I don't know." The black-armored man shook his head. He really did not know, because the Qin Emperor did not tell anyone about Qin Feiyang sneaking into the Divine Dragon Island. It was better to be safe than sorry. Only by keeping this secret could they ensure Qin Feiyang's safety to the greatest extent. Zhang Dafei smiled and said, "The young lord must be planning something big. You have so much confidence in him?" The black-armored man was surprised. "Yes." Zhang Dafei nodded. The black-armored man shook his head helplessly. Why did he feel that in the eyes of Zhang Dafei and the others, Qin Feiyang's status was higher than the Qin Emperor's? Perhaps this was Qin Feiyang's charm. No matter where he went, he could get a group of loyal followers. It's already been so long. Why is there still no movement at all? Could it be that we haven't reached the Divine Dragon Island yet? Someone asked suspiciously. Qin Feiyang glanced at that person and casually asked, "Are you that impatient to see the Divine Dragon Island?" Of course. To me, the Divine Dragon Island is a holy land. Look at the past. Only those who have broken through to the half-step undead realm are qualified to enter Divine Dragon Island. People like us don't even dare to think about it. And now I have the chance to enter Divine Dragon Island. Of course, I am a little impatient. After that, the man looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Don't you want to?" "Yes, of course. It's just that Lord Ancestral Dragon hasn't appeared yet. It's useless even if we think about it." Qin Feiyang laughed. "I thought you didn't want to." That person pursed his lips. Who doesn't want to see such a legendary place as soon as possible? I'm just thinking, is this Divine Dragon Island as magical as the legends say? Qin Feiyang's eyes were filled with curiosity. This is a must. After all, it's the dragon's headquarters. Let's not talk about anything else. Let's just talk about the Dragon God Palace. I believe that the Divine Dragon Island is definitely countless times better than the Dragon God Palace. That person said. Makes sense. Qin Feiyang nodded. Outside, Divine Dragon Island. Inside the main hall, Long Zun sat at the top, while the 10 great ancestral dragons stood respectfully below. How's the situation? Long Zun scanned the 10 great ancestral dragons. Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon looked at Long Zun and said, Old Black and I brought back more than 300,000 people, but the resources. Speaking of this, Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon's face was full of anger. The white-clothed woman looked at Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon and asked, Were all the resources snatched away by Qin Feiyang? That's right. Qin Feiyang's actions were too fast, and there was Qin Batian and the Mermaid Emperor blocking us. When we entered the Northern Dragon God Palace, other than these 300,000 people, there was nothing else. Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon said angrily. The same goes for the Western Dragon God Palace. The white-clothed woman shook her head and sighed. She looked up at Long Zun and said, Lord, when we arrived at the Western Dragon God Palace, there were only a few 100,000 people left. What about the East and South? Long Zun asked. Although the resources of the Eastern Dragon God Palace were also plundered by Qin Feiyang's men, the people left behind were not bad. More than 800,000 people. Blood Dragon Ancestral Dragon said. The resources of the Southern Dragon God Palace were also all gone. As for the disciples of the Dragon God Palace, there were more than 500,000 people. Golden Dragon Ancestral Dragon said. These bastards, their movements are too fast. Long Zun was furious. He thought that he could more or less get back some resources, but he didn't expect that he couldn't even get back a single herb. It's all the Dragon Slayer Palace's fault. If they hadn't intercepted us halfway, we would have had a chance to get back some resources. Silver Dragon Ancestral Dragon roared. Phew. Long Zun took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Then how many people did we bring back from the 4 Dragon God Palaces? We've counted. The disciples of the 4 Dragon God Palaces added up to about 2 million people. Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon respectfully replied. The 4 Dragon God Palaces have more than 100 million disciples, but now only 2 million people are left? Long Zun said angrily. Yes. Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon nodded. Bastard. These humans deserve to die. Killing intent surged in Long Zun's eyes. The 10 great ancestral dragons looked at each other, their eyes full of helplessness. Lord Long Zun, although there are only 2 million people left, their loyalty to us dragons is beyond doubt. If we can train them well, they will be a very terrifying force. Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon said. That's true. To be able to choose to stay at a time like this, they must be absolutely loyal to our dragon clan. It's no exaggeration to say that they are more reliable than Li Chong and the other powerful humans. The woman in white nodded. Then focus on training them. Of course, signing a destiny contract is also necessary. You guys can handle this matter yourselves. Long Zun said. Yes. The 10 great ancestral dragons nodded respectfully. Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon asked, Lord, what about the people we sent out? Those who went to the east were all killed by Qin Feiyang's men. It was that 5-clawed golden dragon. As for the people in the south and west, I erased their souls, so only Li Chong and the others who went to the north came back alive. Long Zun said. Killed them all? Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon was stunned. Long Zun said angrily. Not killing them and letting Qin Feiyang take advantage of them? Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon shrunk his neck. I now know Qin Feiyang's intention. He wants to seal off Divine Dragon Island and imprison us dragons on this island, Long Zun said. Imprison us? The 10 great ancestral dragons were shocked. That's right. There are 2 heaven-defying artifacts in each of the north, south, east, and west. If this isn't to imprison us, then what is it for? If it weren't for the sovereign divine weapon, I'm afraid they would have already killed their way into Divine Dragon Island. Long Zun snorted coldly. Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon said resentfully, This little bastard is quite ambitious. He actually wants to take away the rule of the ancient world from our hands. His plan is very good, but he neglected one point. My Dragon God Palace now has the time rule of 500 years in a day. As long as I have enough time, when I step into the half-step sovereign realm, I will be able to fight against the heaven-defying artifacts. By then it will be the time for us dragons to fight back. Long Zun sneered. That's right. Although I don't know how he left the Nether King's Hell, after leaving the Nether King's Hell, he won't be able to cultivate in the ancient city. In this way, his cultivation speed will be greatly reduced. Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon nodded. So all of you have to hurry up and cultivate. Strive to step into the great undead realm before I break through. By then, with me restraining the heaven-defying artifacts, all of you will be able to easily kill Qin Batian and the others. Long Zun said. Yes. The 10 great ancestral dragons replied respectfully. Long Zun waved his hand and said, then go and make arrangements for the disciples of the Dragon God Palace. Yes. The 10 of them nodded respectfully and turned to leave the palace. Qin Feiyong, Qin Batian, do you think you have already won? Just you wait. When I break through to the half-step dominator realm, it will be your doomsday. Long Zun looked at the night sky outside the palace and his eyes flashed with cold murderous intent. In the sky above a mountain, the 10 great ancestral dragons stood side by side. Swoosh! As the Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon, the White-Robed Lady, the Blood Dragon Ancestral Dragon, and the Golden Dragon Ancestral Dragon waved their hands, countless people appeared in the void before them. These people were the disciples that they had brought back from the 4 Dragon God Palaces. Qin Feiyong was among them. As soon as everyone appeared, they immediately scanned their surroundings. What entered their sight was an endless stretch of mountains, rivers, and land. Although the Divine Dragon Island was just an island, even the Undead Realm experts were unable to see the entire Divine Dragon Island. One could imagine. How big was the Divine Dragon Island? In the mountains there were clouds and mist lingering around. Rivers extended in all directions. The grass and trees were green and it was like a fairyland. The spirit vein and crystal vein energy here is indeed more terrifying than the Dragon God Palace. Yeah. Unbelievable. How many spirit veins and crystal veins are there underground? Look at the top of the mountain. Those are definitely rare herbs in the world. The 2 million disciples scanned their surroundings, their eyes filled with shock. Not to mention these people, even Qin Feiyong was quite surprised. The spirit vein energy of the spirit vein and crystal vein energy of the Divine Dragon Island was not even 1/10 of the Devil's Land. One had to know. The Devil's Land had long been comparable to the Dragon God Palace. Now it had far surpassed the Dragon God Palace. Even so, it was not even 1/10 of the Divine Dragon Island. It was really unbelievable. The most shocking thing was that precious herbs could be seen everywhere in the mountains below. In just half a mile, he found all kinds of elixirs that could open the door to potential, as well as herbs that could increase cultivation. For example, the Tree of Fortune and the Tree of Divine Infant. Their thick trunks could not be surrounded by dozens of people holding hands. There were thousands of fruits on them. This was simply a treasure trove. It was much better than the Black Tortoise realm. Chapter 2844. If he wiped out the Divine Dragon Island as well, thinking of this, Qin Feiyong's heart couldn't help but burn. The resources of the Divine Dragon Island and the 4 Great Dragon God Halls were equivalent to 2/3 of the Divine Continent's resources. At that time, how much would the Black Tortoise realm grow? It was hard to imagine. Just as Qin Feiyong was lost in his thoughts, the Black Dragon Ancestral Gregon said, "As you can see, this is the Divine Dragon Island. Lord Ancestral Gregon, can we really cultivate here?" Someone immediately asked, his eyes filled with apprehension. This place was too tempting. The dragons brought them here. Felt like a dream. Of course. And the Dragon Sovereign personally instructed me to focus on training you guys. The Black Dragon Ancestral Gregon laughed. Focus on training us? Everyone was stunned. That's right. We dragons don't need any talent. We only need loyalty. We dragons also have this confidence. As long as you are loyal to us dragons, even if you don't have talent, we dragons can still nurture you into a supreme expert. The Black Dragon Ancestral Gregon said proudly, "We will pledge our lives to the dragons." 2 million people knelt down and swore. Qin Feiyong also lowered his head and squatted in the crowd. Now was not the time to be impulsive. If he didn't lower his head, he would attract the attention of the dragons. Now, he needed to keep a low profile and try not to attract attention so that he could find Yishwerer and the other 2. Very good. The great ancestral Gragon looked at the attitude of the group and were very satisfied. The black dragon ancestral Gragon waved his hand and a crystal appeared. Qin Feiyong raised his head to look, and his eyes flashed. It was a divine stone of fate. You know what to do. The black dragon ancestral Gragon said indifferently. Yes. Everyone stood up and nodded. Then they all cut their fingers and drops of blood appeared. At this moment, the 10 great ancestral Gragon were extremely cautious. They released their spirit sense and carefully looked at everyone, because they were worried that someone would take advantage of the chaos and not bleed. However, what they were worried about did not happen. 2 million people had cut their fingers. Qin Feiyong naturally had some too. At this time he couldn't play any tricks. As for this destiny contract, of course he wasn't afraid. The enslavement seal could be removed at any time. Ancestral Dragon Black Dragon waved his hand, and all the blood turned into a river of blood that surged into the sky and into the divine stone of fate. Very soon, the fate contract was completed. Li Chang, you will be in charge of arranging their cave residences. Remember, give them the best resources. The Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon put away the divine stone of fate and looked down at the mountains below. Yes. Chapter 2845. In the past, Qin Feiyong's eyes flickered. What Li Chang said was that there used to be more than 1,000 undead realm experts here. What about now? This time Long Zun sent out 1,000 undead realm experts. How many came back? From Li Chang's tone, it seemed that they had lost a lot. Alright, that's it. You guys make your own arrangements. After Li Chang finished speaking, he was ready to leave. Lord Li, what about the resources? Yeah. Cultivation requires soul stones, right? Where are we going to get them? There are also divine arts and divine weapons. Lord Ancestral Dragon just said that he would give us the best resources. Someone hurriedly asked. Giving you the best resources doesn't mean giving you divine arts and divine weapons. If you are equipped with everything, what's the difference between you and the flowers in the greenhouse? Li Chang raised his eyebrows. But Lord Ancestral Dragon said so. Someone was not convinced and used Ancestral Dragon to suppress Li Chang. Lord Ancestral Dragon said so. But the resources do not include divine arts and divine weapons. If you want it, you have to rely on your own abilities. As for soul stones, we weren't prepared for the sudden arrival of so many people. Let me ask Lord Wang Chang first. Li Chang said. Wang Chang. Everyone was stunned and asked suspiciously, who is Lord Wang Chang? Li Chang said in admiration. He is the strongest of our human race and also the strongest of this cultivation place. Great achievement undead realm. Great achievement undead realm. Qin Feiyong's pupils constricted. He thought that among the dragons, Yi Zhong was the only great achievement undead realm expert, but he did not expect there to be another one. The foundation of the dragons was indeed unfathomable. The others were also shocked. They never expected that there would be such a terrifying existence in this cultivation place. You guys find a cave to settle down first. After I discuss with Lord Wang Chang, I will inform you. After Li Chang finished speaking, he rose into the air and flew towards the highest peak not far away. Qin Feiyong followed his gaze. On the peak of the mountain, he could vaguely see a very ordinary straw hut. However, he did not sense anyone's aura on the mountain peak. Presumably, this Lord Wang Chang was a very low-profile person and did not release the slightest bit of aura. Since we're already here, let's take things as they come. Don't think too much about it. Hurry up and pick a cave abode. Let's settle down first. A slender purple-clothed youth turned around to look at everyone and smiled warmly. This person had the cultivation of the Nine Heavens realm perfection, and he looked a little harmless. However, would a truly kind human choose to be the dragon's lackeys? Definitely not. Because once they chose to follow the dragons, they would become the enemy of mankind. Qin Feiyong thought for a moment, then reached out his hand and shook hands with Li Xiaofei and smiled. I am from the Northern Dragon God Palace called Wang Xiao Air. Aya, both of our names have the word Xiao. It seems that we are really fated. Li Xiaofei smiled in surprise. Indeed. Qin Feiyong nodded. Li Xiaofei said. Then Brother Wang, we are friends from now on. If there are any benefits, don't forget me. Friends? Qin Feiyong murmured and waved his hand. Not at all, I will have to trouble Brother Li to take care of me in the future. Brother Wang, you must be joking. With my cultivation, I am not qualified to take care of you. Li Xiaofei shook his head. Qin Feiyong began to size up Li Xiaofei's cultivation after hearing this. His cultivation was not weak. Peak 9 Heaven's Realm. Brother Li, you must be joking. Qin Feiyong shook his head with a wry smile. A Peak 9 Heaven's Realm cultivator needed his care? Do you think a serious person like me would joke? To be honest, Brother Wang, I can feel that although our cultivation is the same, your strength is definitely stronger than mine. Li Xiaofei laughed in a low voice. Is that so? Qin Feiyong was stunned. He could even feel that? Did he really think he was a 3-year-old child that could be easily fooled? Of course. My sixth sense is very accurate. Li Xiaofei nodded with a serious expression. Qin Feiyong glanced at Li Xiaofei, then looked at the purple-clothed young man and asked in a low voice, Is he strong? Not bad. But not as strong as you and me. Li Xiaofei glanced at the purple-clothed young man and said. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed, cupping his hands. Sorry to disturb you. After saying that, he walked towards a mountain ridge on his left without looking back. This Li Xiaofei was simply a fraud. It was better to stay away from such a person. Brother Wang, what do you mean? Li Xiaofei caught up and frowned. You don't think I am fooling you, do you? No. Qin Feiyong waved his hand. With your attitude, you still dare to say no? Li Xiaofei was dissatisfied. Brother, I am very busy. Can you stop bothering me? Qin Feiyong was helpless. Li Xiaofei shook his head and sighed. I wanted to be friends with you sincerely, but you think I am crazy. How sad. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. What kind of person was this? They didn't seem to be familiar with each other. Ignoring Li Xiaofei, Qin Feiyong passed through the forest and finally arrived at the mountain ridge. The mountain ridge was more than 100 feet high, like a giant python winding up and down. On the mountain, there were hundreds of cave residences of various sizes. But here he couldn't even sense a single aura. It was quiet all around. Qin Feiyong glanced at the mountain ridge, then walked toward the cave residence at the bottom. Brother Wang, I am right next to you. Call me if you need anything. Li Xiaofei rolled his eyes and ran to a cave residence next to Qin Feiyong, grinning at Qin Feiyong. Okay. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly and strode into the cave residence. Inside the cave residence, about 100 feet, the ground and walls were inlaid with a kind of black stone slab. Other than that, there were no other decorations. It looked very simple. However, for Qin Feiyong, this cave residence didn't mean much. Because even if he was cultivating, he would go to the castle to cultivate. This cave abode was nothing more than a place to deceive others. At the entrance of the cave residence, there was a black stone door. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and the stone door immediately closed. The entire cave residence immediately fell into darkness. Subsequently, he leaned against the wall and lowered his head to ponder. Although he had successfully sneaked into the Divine Dragon Island, how could he inquire about Yi Shui'er and the other two? One had to know. This was the Divine Dragon Island, the headquarters of the dragons. Everything must be under the control of the dragons. Moreover, although there were 2 million people who entered the Divine Dragon Island this time, almost no one knew that the Chief Pavilion Master, Yi Shui'er and Old Master Yi were on the Divine Dragon Island. So, once he asked someone to inquire about it, it would definitely arouse suspicion. And if he slowly searched alone, the Divine Dragon Island was so big, how long would it take to find them? He didn't have time to waste like this. After all, he still had to plan how to escape the Divine Dragon Island. Headache. Qin Feiyong rubbed his forehead. Although he had sneaked in, he was at his wits' end. Suddenly, he thought of Yi Zhong and immediately sent a voice transmission. Master, you are more familiar with the Divine Dragon Island and know about Long Zun. Can you guess where Long Zun might have locked them up? The most likely place is the Divine Prison. But that's not necessarily the case. We have to investigate before we know. Yi Zhong's voice sounded in Qin Feiyong's mind. Divine Prison? Qin Feiyong was stunned. That's right. But this Divine Prison is located below the sacred mountain of the dragons. There are supreme experts guarding it, and Long Zun has personally set up a barrier. It's almost impossible to sneak in. Yi Zhong said. Divine prison, Qin Feiyang muttered. It would definitely not work if he asked his master to do it now. After all, in the eyes of the dragons, his master had already fallen. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang thought of Li Chang again. This person might really be able to make an entry point. Chapter 2846. Then how much does Master know about Li Chang? Qin Feiyang asked secretly. Li Chang. Yi Zhong pondered for a while and said, this old man has watched this person grow up. Qin Feiyang said, so, Master must know him very well? Sort of. The reason this person entered the Dragon God Palace back then was to take revenge, Yi Zhong said. Revenge? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. Back then, his family was considered a rich and powerful family in the north. But because of some personal grudges, his family was exterminated, and he was the only one who survived. You should be able to imagine the feeling of being exterminated. And the people who exterminated his family didn't let him go. They have been chasing him. Forced to enter the Dragon God Palace, he chose to enter it. This person's talent is not bad. Relying on the resources of the Dragon God Palace, he smoothly stepped into the half-step invincible realm. You should be able to imagine what happened later without this old man saying. He went to take revenge, and then this old man brought him to Divine Dragon Island. Because of the 4 Dragon God Palaces, anyone who breaks through to the half-step invincible realm has to enter Divine Dragon Island. Yi Zhong transmitted. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization and asked, so, he entered the Dragon God Palace because he had no other choice. That's right. In fact, when he broke through to the half-step invincible realm, this old man had already seen that he didn't want to enter Divine Dragon Island. He even wanted to leave the Dragon God Palace. But he also knew that the dragons wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. After all, he could have such achievements because of the dragon's nurturing. Moreover, the Divine Stone of Fate controlled his divine soul. He didn't dare to resist. Yi Zhong said. In other words, he entered Divine Dragon Island because he was forced to? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes, Yi Zhong responded. The corners of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted slightly as he secretly laughed. Then it seems that we can indeed start from him. I won't object to you doing this, but you must ensure his safety. After all, his life has already been very difficult. Yi Zhong said. I will. Qin Feiyang replied. Furthermore, on Divine Dragon Island, unless there is no other choice, do not enter the ancient castle or the Black Tortoise world. Yi Zhong reminded. Why? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. You don't know Long Zun's ability? As long as any spatial divine item is exposed, it will not be able to escape her eyes, Yi Zhong said. I know that. But this ability of hers needs to be seen with the naked eye. She's not in a cultivation place right now, so she shouldn't need to be so careful. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. Yi Zhong said, then how do you know that she's not hiding in the dark and watching you guys? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. No one knew if Long Zun was spying on them in the dark? In short, it's better to be careful, Yi Zhong said. Okay. Qin Feiyang replied and transmitted his voice. Then where did Yi Xuer and Old Master Yi live in the past? Wait a moment, I'll draw a map of Divine Dragon Island for you, so that it'll be convenient for you to act in the future. Yi Zhong secretly said. Map? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned, and his heart was immediately overjoyed. With a map, it would indeed be much more convenient. A moment later, Qin Feiyang's mind moved, and a map immediately appeared in the void in front of him. Qin Feiyang lowered his head to check. On the map, the entire Divine Dragon Island was lifelike, as if it was a copy of Divine Dragon Island. In other words, this was a map of the entire Divine Dragon Island. I've specially marked the more important places on Divine Dragon Island, and there's an explanation below. Take a closer look. Destroy it after you're done, Yi Zhong said. Thank you, Master. Qin Feiyang secretly thanked him, then sat cross-legged on the ground and carefully looked at it. The entire Divine Dragon Island was like a huge divine dragon, lying in the middle of the inland sea. And Divine Dragon Island was divided into 2 areas. Outer area, inner area. The outer area was the home of the dragon's various races. There were a total of 10 dragons, which meant that there were different races. That is, the Fire Dragon Clan, the Golden Dragon Clan, the White Dragon Clan, the Blood Dragon Clan, and so on. The 10 races were scattered in various places in the outer area, surrounding the inner area. And the inner area was where Long Zun was. Right now, Qin Feiyang's cultivation place was also in the inner area. And it was not far from the Dragon Palace. With Qin Feiyang's speed, it would take at most half an hour. And the Dragon Palace was Long Zun's bedroom. That was to say, this cultivation place was right under Long Zun's nose. To Qin Feiyang, this was not good news at all. Because his cultivation was only at the 9th heaven realm, he needed half an hour to rush from the cultivation place to the Dragon Palace. But with Long Zun's cultivation, if he wanted to come to the cultivation place, it would only take a few blinks of an eye. So, in the future, he could not be careless in the cultivation place, because Long Zun could come at any time. And he could not make too much of a commotion. After all, at this distance, if there was any commotion, Long Zun would be alerted immediately. And in the inner area, other than the Dragon Palace and the cultivation place, the most important place was the Sacred Land. No, the Sacred Land was more important than the Dragon Palace on Divine Dragon Island. The Dragon's Sacred Land was located in the center of the entire Divine Dragon Island. And the Sacred Mountain, where the Sovereign Divine Weapon was located, was at the center of the Sacred Land. In short, the layout of Divine Dragon Island was divided into 2 major areas. The outer area had 10 major clans. The inner area had the cultivation place, the Dragon Palace, the Sacred Mountain, and the Sacred Mountain. As for the Divine Prison that Yi Zhong spoke of, it was located beneath the Sacred Mountain. To be honest, entering the Divine Prison was harder than ascending to the heavens. First of all, the Sacred Mountain had the Sovereign Divine Weapon. Think about it, could you sneak into the Divine Prison under the nose of the Sovereign Divine Weapon? It was definitely impossible. Secondly, the Sacred Mountain had supreme experts. Therefore, the plan to sneak into the Divine Prison could be announced as impossible. Qin Feiyang looked at a particularly eye-catching mark on the map. This place was only half an hour away from the Dragon Palace. And this was the courtyard where Yi Xuer and Old Master Yi used to live. But there was a big problem here. Because the place where Yi Xuer and Old Master Yi lived was in the opposite direction of the cultivation place. For example, the Dragon Palace was placed in the center, the cultivation place was on the left, and the place where Yi Xuer lived was on the right. The 3 places were connected in a straight line. In other words, if he wanted to go to the place where Yi Xuer lived, he had to go through the Dragon Palace without taking a detour. Going through the Dragon Palace, that was absolutely impossible, because it was too risky. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and sent a voice transmission. Master, what is Long Zun's cultivation level? Perfection imperishable realm. Yi Zhong said in a deep voice. So strong? Qin Feiyang suddenly stood up, his face full of shock. And according to what I know, she has already started to break through to the half-step sovereign realm. Yi Zhong said again. Half-step sovereign realm? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Half-step sovereign realm is the realm above the imperishable realm. At this realm, her strength is comparable to a fully awakened heaven-defying divine weapon. Yi Zhong said. What? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Half-step sovereign realm was comparable to a fully awakened heaven-defying divine weapon. If Long Zun really stepped into the half-step sovereign realm, wouldn't they be in danger? Don't be nervous. It's not that easy to break through to the sovereign realm. Yi Zhong comforted. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. The sovereign realm has nothing to do with divine power. Because the sovereign realm requires comprehension of the power of law. Yi Zhong said. Comprehension of the power of law? Qin Feiyang was even more puzzled. You should know that there are differences in comprehension of the power of law, right? Yi Zhong asked. I know this. It seems to be 6 stages. Beginner, initial, small success, large success, perfection, great perfection. Qin Feiyang said. He definitely didn't know this himself. He only heard it from Madman. That's right. The power of law has a total of 6 stages. And if you want to step into the sovereign realm, you have to reach the 6th stage, which is perfection of the power of law. Yi Zhong said. Perfection of the power of law? Qin Feiyang was stunned and hurriedly said. Perfection of the power of law. Doesn't it mean that you have completely grasped the power of law? Yes, Yizhong said. That is to say, after completely comprehending a power of law, you can step into the sovereign realm? Qin Feiyang said. It's like this. Yizhong nodded. So stepping into the sovereign realm is related to the power of law. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization and asked, what if you don't comprehend the power of law? If you don't comprehend the power of law, you can forget about stepping into the sovereign realm forever. Yizhong said. I see. Qin Feiyang muttered. Sigh, not to mention those who don't comprehend the power of law. Even those like us who have comprehended the power of law may not be able to step into the sovereign realm forever. Because the profound meaning of the power of law is too difficult. Just like this old man. I have comprehended the law of fire for so many years, but until now I have been stuck at the second stage. If I don't have any fortuitous encounters, such as the guidance of an expert or the inheritance of a certain expert, this old man is afraid that I can only stay at the second stage for the rest of my life. Yizhong sighed. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. Even with Master's temperament facing the power of law, he was actually so desperate? It seemed that to completely comprehend a power of law was more difficult than he imagined. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang seemed to have thought of something and asked Master, what if a person has two types of power of law? It's the same. As long as you completely comprehend one of the power of law, you can step into the sovereign realm. However, a person who has two types of power of law, is there such a person in this world? Yizhong said. There is. Qin Feiyang secretly smiled. Who? Why don't this old man know? Yizhong was shocked and quickly asked. It's your disciple me. Qin Feiyang chuckled. You? Yizhong was stunned for a moment in the ancient castle and then said, how is that possible? Didn't you comprehend the power of law of light? Would this disciple lie to you? Before returning to the ancient world, I made a trip back to the great Qin and by chance, comprehended the law of cause and effect. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. What? You actually comprehended the law of cause and effect? Yizhong's body that was formed by his god soul suddenly trembled. His eyes filled with disbelief. Chapter 2847. Yes. If you don't believe me, you can ask Yi Cheng. Qin Feiyang secretly said. This old man doesn't doubt it. But, this is really unbelievable. A person can actually comprehend two types of law. This is the first time this old man has heard of such a thing. What's more terrifying is that it's actually the law of cause and effect. Yizhong said. Is the law of cause and effect very strong? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Although he comprehended the law of cause and effect, he wasn't very clear about the specifics. You should know that there are strong and weak law of cause and effect. The law of cause and effect is the strongest law of cause and effect in this world. Of course, it's just one of them. As far as this old man knows, since ancient times, no one has ever comprehended the law of cause and effect. Yizhong said. So strong? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Very powerful. Kid, you're really lucky. Yizhong said enviously. You flatter me, I'm just lucky. Qin Feiyang chuckled, but the joy and pride in his words couldn't be concealed. Lucky? Yizhong shook his head. Although comprehending the law of cause and effect was indeed related to luck, the most important thing was still one's own conditions. Qin Feiyang could comprehend two types of law of cause and effect was one of the strongest law of cause and effect. One could say that this child was already the number one person in the world. As Yi Cheng said, this disciple was indeed worthy of being proud of. Master, how much else do you know about the law of cause and effect? Tell me all of it. Qin Feiyang said with a face full of curiosity. Actually, this old man doesn't know much. I just occasionally heard about it from Long Zun. If you want to know, you have to ask Long Zun. Yizhong said. Ask Long Zun? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback and smiled bitterly. Forget it then. This disciple still wants to live for a few more years. Actually, there's no need for you to inquire so much right now. Focus on comprehending these two types of laws first. As long as you comprehend it, you will be able to step into the sovereign realm. Once you step into the sovereign realm, you will be able to go to a bigger world and see more experts. At that time, you will naturally understand everything that you don't know. Yizhong said. That makes sense. Qin Feiyong nodded and said inwardly, "Thank you, Master, for your teachings." Teach? Yi Zhong shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I'm really ashamed. Whether it's talent or intelligence, you're better than this old man. This old man can't teach you anything at all." "Of course. For example, I need your advice on how to deal with things and so on," Qin Feiyong said. "I guess this is all I can teach you." Yi Zhong shook his head. "Can you not be so modest? If you don't have any standards, why would the two ancestors value you so much?" Qin Feiyong was speechless. Yi Zhong couldn't help but laugh. "All right then, you continue to reconstruct your divine soul and physical body. I'll think of a way to go to the place where Yi Shuai and the others are staying," Qin Feiyong said. "Be careful then," Yi Zhong reminded. "And?" Qin Feiyong nodded and asked with a stunned expression, "Master, can the altar be opened on Divine Dragon Island?" "No," Yi Zhong said. "How troublesome." Qin Feiyong rubbed his forehead. If he couldn't open the altar, he had to sneak over step by step. Who knew what would happen along the way? But if he could open the altar, as long as he knew the coordinates, he could immediately run over without anyone noticing. "All right then. I won't disturb you any further. I have to think about it." After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, he looked at the map again and pondered. Time passed bit by bit. Outside, dawn arrived. The sun rose slowly. Under the reflection of the morning sun, Divine Dragon Island became even more magnificent. "Everyone come out!" Suddenly, Li Chang shouted. Inside the cave, Qin Feiyong was stunned and a hint of suspicion flashed in his eyes. He got up and waved his hand to destroy the map. Then, he opened the door of the cave and strode out. Everything on the map had been imprinted in his mind, so there was no need for it. Morning. Li Xiaofei also happened to walk out of the cave. Looking at Qin Feiyong, he waved his hand naturally and smiled. Morning. Qin Feiyong smiled slightly. Li Xiaofei walked up and put his arm around Qin Feiyong's shoulder. Qin Feiyong didn't expect this person to be so casual and instinctively resisted. But on second thought, perhaps it was easier to hide one's identity with someone around. Because sometimes if one was too arrogant, it would be easier to attract the attention of others. Li Xiaofei said, "Brother Wang, believe me, I'm really not a fraud." Qin Feiyong was stunned. He almost forgot about it, but he didn't expect this person to still remember it. "It's true. My sixth sense has never been wrong." Li Xiaofei patted his chest and made a solemn vow. Good, good, good. I believe you, I believe you." Qin Feiyong nodded helplessly. If he didn't believe him, he was afraid this person wouldn't stop. "Do you really believe me?" Li Xiaofei looked at him doubtfully. "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded. Li Xiaofei suddenly smiled, turned his head and glanced at the mountain behind, and said, "It seems that there are only two of us here? Isn't this good?" Qin Feiyong smiled. "It's too quiet and boring." Li Xiaofei pursed his lips and then asked, "Why don't we move to a crowded place?" "Not interested. I'm here to cultivate, not to join in the fun." Qin Feiyong shook his head. "That's true." Li Xiaofei nodded and said with a smile, "Then, let's rely on each other here." "All right." Qin Feiyong nodded with a wry smile. With such a scammer by his side, he really wouldn't be bored in the future. Soon, the two of them walked to the central area of the cultivation ground, where a dense crowd of people had already gathered. Li Chang stood in the air. "After discussing with Lord Wang Chong and consulting with Lord Long Zun, we have decided to set up a Deacon's Hall here. It's the same as the Deacon's Hall in the Dragon God Palace, responsible for distributing resources and other matters." Li Chang said expressionlessly, "Then when can we receive the resources?" Everyone didn't care about the Deacon's Hall at all, as long as they got the resources. Li Chang glanced at the mountains and rivers below, and suddenly locked onto a giant mountain not far away. Following that, Li Chang took a step forward and landed on the peak of the mountain. Then, he used his great mana and quickly built a black hall on the peak of the mountain. Following that, Li Chang walked into the hall and took out a desk and a chair. "You can come up now. Don't worry, 2 million people. It will take a long time to distribute resources. Come one by one. Those who are not in a hurry can go back to the cave first and come back later." When Li Chang's voice came out from the hall, Many people couldn't wait to fly towards the peak of the mountain. Brother Wang, let's go too. Li Xiaofei pulled Qin Feiyang and ran towards the peak of the mountain. Lord Li Chang won't swallow your resources, what's the hurry? Qin Feiyang was speechless and stopped in the air. Aren't you curious how many soul stones the dragons will give us? Li Xiaofei asked. What's there to be curious about? We'll know in the end anyway. Qin Feiyang shook his head. You're too calm. All right. I'll go up first. When I get the resources, I'll come back to you. After Li Xiaofei finished speaking, he rushed to the peak of the mountain with the others. Just for these resources, is it worth it to follow the dragons and sell your self-esteem? Qin Feiyang sighed secretly. To be honest, no matter how many soul stones they gave, he didn't care. First of all, he didn't lack soul stones at all. Secondly, he didn't need the dragons' charity. Or he could just rob them. That would be satisfying. Without staying any longer, Qin Feiyang returned to the cave. After pondering for a while, he finally gritted his teeth and activated the concealment technique. According to the map in his memory, he rushed in the direction of the Dragon Palace. Of course, he couldn't go directly to the Dragon Palace, but he was going to bypass the Dragon Palace. It took half an hour to go from the cultivation place to the Dragon Palace, and another half an hour to go from the Dragon Palace to the residence of Yi Shui'er and Old Master Yi. In total, it was exactly 1 hour. If he took a detour, the time needed would naturally be extended. But now the concealment technique could be activated twice a day, and each time it could last for 2 hours. It was completely enough for a round trip. He was afraid that there would be an accident on the way. Chapter 2848. Although it was his first time coming to Divine Dragon Island, with the map drawn by Yi Zhong, Qin Feiyang was very familiar with every place. Not long after leaving the cultivation place, Qin Feiyang entered a vast mountain. There were plants, lakes, and rivers in the mountain, but there was not a single beast. However, there were many small animals. For example, there were lively little rabbits, dancing white cranes, and colorful birds. They made this Divine Dragon Island look like a fairyland. What's the situation? Qin Feiyang frowned. On such a big island, except for these small animals, why was there not even a single beast? Later, he couldn't help but be curious and asked Yi Zhong. It turned out that Divine Dragon Island prohibited beasts from entering. In other words, the entire Divine Dragon Island only had dragons and a small number of humans, as well as these cute little animals. Even in the past, Divine Dragon Island didn't have these small animals. Later, Princess Dragons felt that this Divine Dragon Island was too deserted, so she went outside to catch some small animals and raised them on Divine Dragon Island. In short, except for dragons, any creature that wanted to step into the Dragon God Palace must first get the permission of Dragon Sovereign. The journey was smooth beyond imagination. After about half an hour, Qin Feiyang finally saw a courtyard. It's here. According to the map, Yi Shui'er and Old Man Yi used to live here. Qin Feiyang stood in front of the courtyard and didn't rush in. He first carefully sensed. However, in the courtyard, he didn't sense the aura of the two. Could it be that they are no longer here? Qin Feiyang secretly muttered and quietly entered the courtyard. He searched inside and out, but there was no one in the courtyard. How is it? Yi Cheng's voice rang in Qin Feiyang's mind. No one. Qin Feiyang secretly said. How could there be no one? Yi Cheng was surprised. Qin Feiyang remained silent. He turned around and entered a bedroom. There was no one in the bedroom, and the bedding was neatly folded. Just as Qin Feiyang was about to leave, he suddenly noticed a jade pendant on a cabinet beside the bed. Qin Feiyang walked over suspiciously and grabbed the jade pendant on the cabinet. This jade pendant was about half the size of a baby's palm, and it was engraved with the pattern of a divine phoenix. There was also the word Yi in the middle. Yi Cheng, is this jade pendant Yi Shui'er's? Qin Feiyang asked secretly. What jade pendant? Yi Cheng was bewildered. Qin Feiyang described the shape of the jade pendant to Yi Cheng. Right. This is Shui'er's. Although it's just an ordinary piece of jade, it means a lot to Shui'er, because it was a gift from her parents when she was born. Ever since her parents died, she has been carrying this jade pendant with her. Yi Cheng said hurriedly. The jade pendant is here, but she's not. What's going on? Qin Feiyong frowned, turned around and walked out of the room. He left the courtyard and looked around, but he still didn't find Yi Shuer and old Master Yi. Feiyong, there's a cultivation room under the hall in the courtyard. Have you looked for it? Yi Zhong's voice sounded. Cultivation room? Qin Feiyong was stunned. He returned to the courtyard, entered the hall and scanned the floor. Yi Zhong said, this cultivation room is used by Shuer to cultivate. Quickly take a look and see if she's inside. How do I open the secret door? Qin Feiyong asked secretly. Do you see the vase in the left corner of the hall? Yi Zhong asked. Qin Feiyong turned around and saw a blue and white porcelain vase that was as tall as a person in the left corner of the hall. There's a vase. Qin Feiyong replied. Turn it gently. Yi Zhong said. Okay. Qin Feiyong stepped forward, held the vase and exerted a little force. As the vase turned, a crack appeared on the floor of the hall, and then it slowly opened. Not long after, a cultivation room of about 10 feet in size appeared in front of him. Qin Feiyong stood above and scanned the cultivation room below. There was nothing in the cultivation room except for a futon. Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, Master, they're not in the cultivation room. Then where could they be? Yi Zhong was surprised. Could it be that they've been killed? Yi Chang suddenly said. Impossible. Longzuan isn't such a heartless person. Yi Zhong said. Big brother, you're still protecting her at this point? Yi Chang said angrily. Yi Zhong was silent. Yi Chang, don't worry. I didn't find any bloodstains or traces of battle in this courtyard. I think they should be safe. Qin Feiyong comforted him. In fact, even he wasn't sure. Because there were no bloodstains or traces of battle here, it couldn't prove anything at all. After all, given Longzuan's strength, he could kill Yi Shuer and Yi Chang without leaving any traces. Taking a step back, if the two of them were really safe, where would they be now? One had to know. This happened last night. In other words, only one night had passed. Tada! Just as Qin Feiyong was pondering, there was a sudden sound of footsteps outside. Qin Feiyong immediately shivered and quickly closed the secret door. He calmed down and hid behind the vase. He was extremely nervous and there was a trace of doubt in his eyes. Who would come here at this time? Very soon, the door was pushed open and a gust of fragrant wind blew into the hall. He saw a woman in white standing outside the door. Yi Shuer. Qin Feiyong's eyes lit up. That's right. This woman was Yi Shuer. But just as he was about to greet Yi Shuer, he suddenly realized that there was a young man standing at the entrance of the courtyard. This young man was about 1.8 meters tall. He was wearing a white long robe and his face was like jade. He had an elegant demeanor. What a powerful aura. Qin Feiyong's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't see through this young man's cultivation at all. However, this person's aura contained a pure dragon power. Obviously, his real body was a divine dragon, and this young man obviously came with Yi Shuer. Yi Shuer stood at the door and glanced at the hall. Her eyes were extremely melancholic. She then strode into the hall and headed to the second floor. Qin Feiyong glanced at the young man outside the courtyard. Then he stealthily followed him. Very soon Yi Shuer entered the bedroom and glanced at the cabinet beside the bed. Yes. At that moment she was stunned. Where was the jade pendant? She clearly remembered that she left it here before she left. Qin Feiyong saw Yi Shuer's appearance and knew that she was here to get the jade pendant. And the jade pendant was now in his hands. Are you looking for this? Just as Yi Shuer was confused, a voice suddenly rang in her mind. Immediately after, she saw the jade pendant appear in front of her out of thin air. Yi Shuer was shocked. Don't make a sound. Qin Feiyong hurriedly transmitted his voice and then grabbed Yi Shuer. Yi Shuer immediately entered stealth mode. At the same time, she also saw Qin Feiyong. You. A trace of killing intent appeared in Yi Shuer's eyes. Killing intent? Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned and quickly said, No matter what Longzun said to you, please calm down. Yi Shuer didn't make a sound and just stared at Qin Feiyong. Although Qin Feiyong used to get along with her as Li Bu-er, she also knew what Qin Feiyong looked like. After all, there were rumors about Qin Feiyong everywhere in the Divine Land these years. Moreover, back then she even saved Qin Feiyong. At that time Qin Feiyang was in a coma. So at a glance she had already recognized Qin Feiyang. Sure, what's wrong? Outside. The young man in white also keenly felt Yi Shui's killing intent and hurriedly asked loudly. Qin Feiyang's expression changed slightly, and he could even sense that the young man in white had already entered the courtyard. Your grandfather is not dead. Give me some time to explain. Qin Feiyang hurriedly transmitted his voice. Grandfather is not dead. Yi Shui's eyes suddenly trembled. Please believe me, Qin Feiyang said. Yi Shui took a deep look at Qin Feiyang and then said, I just thought of grandfather and second grandfather's death and couldn't control the killing intent in my heart. It's nothing, you don't have to come in, I want to be alone for a while. Alright then. The young man in white's voice sounded outside. Qin Feiyang walked to the window and saw the young man in white stop and sit at the stone table in the courtyard. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. What's going on? Yi Shui transmitted her voice. Seeing is believing, hearing is false. Qin Feiyang secretly smiled. With a thought, Yi Zhong and Yi Cheng quietly appeared beside him. Grandfather, second grandfather. Yi Shui looked at the two of them and couldn't help but cry. Girl, it's been hard on you. Yi Zhong sighed and his eyes were full of self-blame. What's going on? Yi Shui looked at the two of them and asked. It's a long story, I'll tell you slowly when I have time. You just have to remember to listen to Qin Feiyang from now on. Yi Zhong transmitted his voice. Okay. Yi Shui nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at Yi Zhong and transmitted his voice to Yi Shui. What did Longzuan say to you after Master faked his death? Hearing this question, Yi Zhong looked at Yi Shui nervously and expectantly. Yi Shui tried to recall what had happened and briefly explained the situation to him. After hearing this, Yi Zhong's face turned pale. Yi Cheng looked at his elder brother and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He then looked at Yi Shui and transmitted his voice. Are you sure Longzuan said to take revenge on Qin Feiyang? Yes. Yi Shui nodded and said to herself, she also asked me and great-grandfather to go to the Dragon Palace and teach us cultivation personally. So you went to the Dragon Palace. Qin Feiyang came to a realization and secretly sneered. She asked you to go to the Dragon Palace not to teach you cultivation, but to spy on you. Yi Shui couldn't help but panic when she heard this. She originally thought that Longzuan was doing it for her own good, but she didn't expect that she was just using her. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Yi Zhong and transmitted his voice. Master, now that the truth is in front of you, you should give up now. Yi Zhong lowered his head and didn't say a word. If one took a closer look, they would see a hint of disappointment and pain between his brows. Chapter 2849. What's wrong? Yi Shui looked at the three of them suspiciously. She didn't know about the relationship between Yi Zhong and Longzuan, so she was puzzled when she saw Yi Zhong's disappointed face. Qin Feiyang said to himself, Yi Cheng, accompany master to the ancient castle. Okay. Yi Cheng nodded. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the two of them disappeared. It was obvious that master had always had feelings for Longzuan. Although it was impossible for them to be together, at least he could always be by her side. For master, he was already very satisfied to be able to protect her like this. But what he didn't expect was that after he faked his death, Longzuan wasn't sad at all. Instead, he used his death to make Yi Shui and old Master Yi become his chess pieces for revenge. How could master not be heartbroken in the face of such ruthlessness? Perhaps Longzuan had been using master's feelings for her all along to make master work for her. So now master must be feeling terrible. Qin Feiyang, Grandpa, what is he doing? Yi Shui was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, children shouldn't ask too much about adult matters. Yi Shui rolled her eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang. She asked, are you really Li Bu-er? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. You're really a bastard. Yi Shui cursed. Everyone in the Dragon God Palace was deceived by this guy. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly and said to himself, then your great-grandfather is in the Dragon Palace now? Yes. Yi Shui nodded. Then who is the person outside? Qin Feiyang asked. Yi Shui said, he is Longzuan's son, the Prince of the Dragons. What? It's him. Qin Feiyang was shocked and couldn't help but walk to the window again and look at the young man in white. The young man sat at the stone table and looked into the distance. His expression was calm and he exuded a scholarly aura. If one didn't know this person's identity, just based on his temperament, no one would be able to resist or dislike him. This was completely different from the domineering dragons in Long Zun. What's his cultivation? Qin Feiyong asked secretly. He seems to be at the small success imperishable stage. Yi Xuer transmitted her voice. What? Qin Feiyong was shocked. He said through sound transmission, when we were in the Nether King's Hell, Master and the Beast Emperor said that he had just entered the imperishable realm? I heard that he broke through to the initial imperishable stage a few years ago. Yi Xuer thought to herself. Impressive. Qin Feiyong mumbled. This prince's cultivation was much stronger than the dragon princess's. Most importantly, the Beast Emperor had said that the Prince of Dragons possessed a heaven-defying divine art. If nothing unexpected happened, this person would definitely become a formidable opponent. Qin Feiyong retracted his gaze and thought, what about the Chief Pavilion Master? She's locked up in the divine prison. Yi Xuer said. She's really in the divine prison? Qin Feiyong frowned. Originally, he still had some hope that the Chief Pavilion Master might not really be locked up in the divine prison. She might also be locked up in other places. But now Yi Xuer's words had undoubtedly completely shattered the hope in his heart. Locked up in the divine prison. This was going to be difficult to handle. Yi Xuer looked at Qin Feiyong with an inexplicable color in her eyes. She transmitted her voice. How did you sneak into the Divine Dragon Island? Did you sneak into the Divine Dragon Island to save us? If it wasn't to save you, why would I come to the Divine Dragon Island? Qin Feiyong angrily glared at her. When Yi Xuer heard this, her cheeks immediately flushed red, and her heart was filled with joy. Why is your face red? Are you crazy? Qin Feiyong looked at her suspiciously. You're the one who's crazy. Yi Xuer was stunned, and then she couldn't help but roll her eyes. What a blockhead. Xuer, are you done? Outside, the voice of the Prince of Dragons sounded. It's about time. Yi Xuer responded, then looked at Qin Feiyong and said to herself, what should we do now? Do I still go to the Dragon Palace? Of course you have to go. If you don't go, Long Zun will definitely be suspicious. At that time, you and your great-grandfather might be in danger. Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. But, Yi Xuer was a little flustered. Don't panic. Just pretend that you haven't seen us. Also, you have to continue to hate me. It's best if you hate me so much that your teeth itch. This way you won't be exposed. Qin Feiyong secretly said. But I can't hate you now. Yi Xuer was a little troubled. Even if you can't hate me, you have to. Unless you want everyone to die here. Qin Feiyong said. Alright, I'll try my best. Yi Xuer nodded helplessly. Not try your best, but you must do it. Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. Alright. Yi Xuer nodded. Also, when you return to the Dragon Palace, don't tell your great-grandfather about us first. And don't think about going to the cultivation ground to look for me. After I think of a way to rescue the Chief Pavilion Master from the God's prison, I will go and pick you guys up. Qin Feiyong said. Shameless, who would think of looking for you? Yi Xuer lowered her head and said with a red face, I'm serious, I'm not joking with you. Now, your every move is related to our life and death. Qin Feiyong frowned. Yi Xuer was slightly stunned. She raised her head and looked at Qin Feiyong angrily. How could there be such a wooden man in the world? Do I have to say it out loud? Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. By the way, did this Prince of Dragons inherit Long Zun's ability? What ability? Yi Xuer was suspicious. It's the ability to hear other people's voice transmission and see the space divine items hidden in the void. Qin Feiyong said. Seems to be possible. Yi Xuer nodded. Then it seems that I have to be more careful in the future. Qin Feiyong muttered. If he met Long Zun, the Dragon's Princess, and this Prince of Dragons, he must not send a sound transmission in front of them. Otherwise, nothing would be able to escape their prying eyes. Then, Qin Feiyong waved his hand. Then hurry up and go. Yi Xuer acted as if she didn't hear it. After pondering for a while, she mustered her courage and raised her head to look at Qin Feiyong, asking, You've been to hell for so many years, Don't tell me you don't have anything else to say to me? Something else? What do you mean? Qin Feiyong had a puzzled look on his face. This is infuriating. Yi Xuer stomped her feet, took the jade pendant, turned around and ran out. What's going on? Qin Feiyong scratched his head. You're out. When Yi Xuer walked out of the courtyard, the Prince of Dragons immediately stood up with a gentle smile on his face. Yes. Yi Xuer nodded, trying her best to make herself sad and depressed. It'll all pass. The Prince of Dragons walked up and comforted her. Thank you. Yi Xuer forced a smile, turned her head to look at the courtyard, and left without looking back, accompanied by the Prince of Dragons. Qin Feiyong stood in front of the window the entire time, looking at the back view of the Prince of Dragons, his expression a little strange. This Prince of Dragons seemed to be interested in Yi Xuer. Cultivation grounds. When Qin Feiyong calmly returned to the cultivation grounds, it was already almost noon. Everyone was still queuing up to receive their resources. Qin Feiyong looked from afar, then directly returned to his cave. This trip was not in vain. Not only did he resolve Yi Xuer's misunderstanding of him, he also met the legendary Prince of Dragons. The most important thing was still his master. After knowing that Long Zun used Yi Xuer and Old Man Yi, his master would definitely be disheartened. In this way, his master would naturally choose to stay in the Black Tortoise world in the future. His master's understanding of dragons far surpassed others. With his master's help, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. There was also the Beast Sovereign. The Beast Sovereign also knew dragons like the back of his hand. Unfortunately, the Beast Sovereign was still in hell. Brother Wang. Suddenly, Li Xiaofei's voice sounded outside the cave. When Qin Feiyong heard Li Xiaofei's voice, he couldn't help but frown. Isn't this person too familiar with him? He didn't know him at all before. Brother Wang, are you there? Li Xiaofei's voice sounded again. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and the cave stone door opened. That moment, a figure ran into the cave at a flying speed. Who else could it be but Li Xiaofei? Qin Feiyong looked at Li Xiaofei, who looked very excited. What are you so happy about? Qin Feiyong looked at him suspiciously. Of course it's resources. Li Xiaofei took out a qiankuan bag from his arms and waved it in front of Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong grabbed the qiankuan bag and looked at it. Don't say. It's really a lot, almost 1 million. Just 1 million. Li Xiaofei laughed. 1 million is indeed a lot, but for people of our cultivation level it doesn't seem to be much, right? Qin Feiyong frowned. Of course. If it's only 1 million soul stones, of course I won't be so excited. What really makes me excited is that we can get 1 million soul stones every year. Li Xiaofei said. Every year. Qin Feiyong was stunned. That's right. Think about it, if we can get 1 million soul stones a year, then what about 10 years? 100 years? 1,000 years? In other words, in the future we won't have to worry about soul stones anymore. Li Xiaofei said excitedly. The corner of Qin Feiyong's mouth twitched slightly. This time the dragons really put in a lot of effort. Although 1 million soul stones is a small amount, it's a terrifying number when added up. Not to mention, this time 2 million people came. 1 million per person, 10 million per person, 100 million per person. It's really unimaginable. This also proves how terrifying the foundation of the dragons is. Because even he can't take out such a big sum now. You should go and get it too. Li Xiaofei put away the qiankuan ring and urged Qin Feiyong. They won't run away, what's the hurry? Qin Feiyong shook his head. How can you still be so calm, are you still human? Li Xiaofei looked at Qin Feiyong strangely. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes and said, Is there anything else? If not, don't disturb my cultivation. Fine. I'm worried for nothing. Li Xiaofei pursed his lips and turned to walk out. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and the stone door closed, then lowered his head and muttered. Sacred grounds, Holy Mountain Yi Xuer and Old Man Yi had already been found, so the only thing left was the Chief Pavilion Master. As long as he saved the Chief Pavilion Master, he could plan to leave the Divine Dragon Island. However, the Holy Mountain had a ruler's divine weapon, and the sacred ground was also guarded by a supreme expert. How could he sneak in without anyone noticing? Half a month later, Qin Feiyong finally walked out of the cave and flew towards the duty hall. At this time, the duty hall was empty and seemed incomparably cold. Qin Feiyong walked to the front of the door, looked at Li Chong who was sitting inside, and bowed. Disciple Wang Xiao'er greets Lord Li Chong. Li Chong was slightly startled. He raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Come in." Qin Feiyong walked into the duty hall. Li Chong said in an office tone, "Name cultivation, which divine dragon island are you from?" Wang Xiao'er, Peak Nine Heavens Realm. From the Northern Dragon God Palace. Qin Feiyong replied one by one. Northern Dragon God Palace. Li Chong was startled. He raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "So, you have also seen Qin Feiyong with your own eyes?" "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded. Li Chong asked, "Then aren't you afraid?" "What's there to be afraid of?" Qin Feiyong did not understand. "You have seen Qin Feiyong before, so you naturally know his methods. And if you enter the Divine Dragon Island, it means that you will become his enemy in the future. At that time, what will you use to face him?" Li Chong said. "Courage, of course." Qin Feiyong said without hesitation. "Courage," Li Chong muttered and shook his head. "These days I have asked a lot of people, and their answers are almost the same as yours. I just don't know if you really have the courage to face Qin Feiyong head-on." Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed and asked with a smile, "Then what about you, Lord?" "Me?" Li Chong was startled. Chapter 2850. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. "What do you mean?" Li Chong frowned. Qin Feiyong asked, "Do you have the courage to face Qin Feiyong?" "What a joke." Li Chong was so angry that he laughed and said, "I am a dignified expert of the undead stage. So what if you are a supreme expert? Can you beat Qin Feiyong's heaven-defying artifact?" Qin Feiyong directly interrupted Li Chong's words and said lightly. Hearing this, Li Chong's body suddenly stiffened. What a joke! Who could beat a heaven-defying artifact? Even Lord Longzun couldn't. "See, you don't have much confidence," Qin Feiyong said with a smile. "Are you laughing at me?" Li Chong raised his eyebrows. No. Qin Feiyong hurriedly shook his head and cupped his hands. "If I have offended you, I hope you can forgive me." Li Chong glanced at Qin Feiyong, took out a Qinkuan bag, and threw it to Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong caught the Qinkuan bag, checked it a little and smiled. "Thank you, Lord." "Go." Li Chong waved his hand. Qin Feiyong turned and walked out of the door. Walked to the door and looked outside. Seeing that there was no one outside, he stopped and turned to look at Li Chong, smiled and said, "Tonight in the early morning, if you have time, you can come to me and we can have a good chat." After saying that, without waiting for Li Chong to respond, he turned and left without looking back. Li Chong looked up at Qin Feiyong's back, and a hint of suspicion flashed in his eyes. After leaving the Deacon Hall, Qin Feiyong went straight back to the cave. In the blink of an eye, a day passed and dawn came. Inside the cave there were 2 more chairs and a tea table. On the tea table, a pot of tea had been brewed, and there was an intoxicating tea fragrance. At this moment Qin Feiyong was sitting on one of the chairs, squinting his eyes, as if he was taking a nap. The entire cave, except for the fragrance of tea, was quiet. Time passed by. About an hour passed. Seeing that there was still no movement outside, Qin Feiyong opened his eyes, a trace of disappointment in them. "Looks like this Li Chong." Just as he thought of this, there was a weak knock on the door. Qin Feiyong immediately turned his head to look at the stone door, and a smile crept into his eyes. With a wave of his hand, the stone door slowly opened, and a familiar figure immediately entered his sight. Who else could it be but Li Chong? "I thought that you didn't care about it and didn't want to come. Please come in." Qin Feiyong got up to greet him. Li Chong glanced at the cave and walked in. Qin Feiyong waved his hand again, and the cave slowly closed. "Sir, please take a seat." Qin Feiyong pointed to the seat opposite him. Li Chong sat on the chair and looked at the teapot on the table. A trace of bewilderment immediately crept into his eyes. "This tea aroma, what is it?" Qin Feiyong looked at Li Chong suspiciously. "Where did you get this tea?" Li Chong frowned. "I planted it myself." Qin Feiyong said with a faint smile. "I planted it myself." Li Chong stared at the teapot and muttered to himself. He suddenly raised his head and stared at Qin Feiyong, saying, I have drunk this tea before. You have? Qin Feiyong was stunned. This was impossible. In the entire divine land, only he had this heavenly deity do. Some time ago, I went to visit old Master Yi. At that time, old Master Yi entertained me with this tea. According to old Master Yi, this was given to him by Li Bu-er, the disciple of Chief Hall Master Yi Zhong. This Li Bu-er is Qin Feiyong in disguise. And now, you're saying that you grew this tea. Then wouldn't you be admitting your identity without being pressed? Li Chang said. Qin Feiyong was stunned. He really didn't expect this. However, he did give a jar of heavenly deity due to old Master Yi. You are Qin Feiyong. Li Chang got up, stared at Qin Feiyong and said word by word. Qin Feiyong smiled, got up and cupped his hands, saying, Junior Qin Feiyong greets Senior. You are indeed Qin Feiyong. Li Chang's eyes trembled. It was just a speculation before, but he didn't expect it to be this person. Yes, I am Qin Feiyong. Moreover, even if you didn't see through me, I will take the initiative to confess my identity to you, Qin Feiyong said with a faint smile. Why? Li Chang frowned. One had to know. The dragons hated Qin Feiyong to the core. And he was now a member of the dragons. Qin Feiyong actually took the initiative to confess his identity to him? Wasn't this courting death? As I know you, Qin Feiyong said with a smile. You know me? Li Chang frowned. Yes. Being chased by my enemies and having no way out, I had no choice but to enter the Dragon God Palace. After entering the Dragon God Palace, relying on my extraordinary talent, I indeed obtained a lot of resources and finally broke through to the half-step invincible realm. However, although I obtained a powerful cultivation and had the ability to take revenge on my enemies, I had lost my freedom and could only enter Divine Dragon Island helplessly, Qin Feiyong said. Are you investigating me? Li Chang said angrily. Do you think I have so much free time? Besides, you have always been on Divine Dragon Island. I have never even heard of you before. How can I investigate you? Master was the one who told me all of this. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. You still have the face to mention your master? Li Chang laughed angrily. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong was stunned. Still playing dumb? Go and ask around. Who doesn't know that you killed Yi Zhong with your own hands? And it's a complete annihilation. To tell you the truth, I am indebted to Grand Hall Master Yi Zhong for grooming me. If you kill him, you will become my enemy. Li Chang's eyes flashed coldly. You are indebted to Master for grooming you? Qin Feiyong was surprised. If that was the case, things would be easier to handle. That's right. Back then, it was the Master of the Dragon God Palace who ordered the Master of the Dragon God Palace to take special care of me. I know you have a heaven-defying artifact, but this is Divine Dragon Island. Now, please come with me to see Lord Dragon Sovereign. Li Chang got up and looked at Qin Feiyong expressionlessly. Qin Feiyong didn't move. He looked up at Li Chang and said, It's because of Master's death that you hate me so much and want to kill me. What if Master is not dead? The truth is the truth. It can never be changed. Li Chang snorted coldly. All right. Then I'll let you see what the real truth is. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said to himself, Master, I'll have to disturb you again. It's fine. Yi Zhong's voice sounded a little hoarse. Qin Feiyong's mind moved, and Yi Zhong's soul immediately appeared in the cave. Master of the palace. Li Chang's eyes trembled slightly. It's me. Yi Zhong nodded and smiled. What's going on? Li Chang looked at Yi Zhong and then at Qin Feiyong, his eyes full of doubts. Back then I didn't kill Master at all. Yi Chang is still alive and well. In short, this is a play that I directed. Qin Feiyong said. A play? Li Chang was slightly stunned and frowned. Why do you want to do this? Could it be? When he spoke up to hear, Li Chang looked at Yi Zhong and said, Could it be that it's really as Long Zun said? You had the heart to betray the dragon race since long ago, so you put on this show with Qin Feiyong? Li Chang, you think too simply. If this old man really had the heart to betray, would I let Schwerer and Father stay on Divine Dragon Island? Yi Zhong sighed. Then what are you doing? Li Chang's face was full of suspicion. This matter, Qin Feiyong chuckled and said, This is because of the personal feelings between Master and Long Zun. Yi Zhong immediately rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyong. Personal feelings? Li Chang was stunned and said in surprise, Master of the palace, could it be that the rumors are true? Yuan Long Zun. Cough cough. Yi Zhong coughed dryly and shook his head. There's no need to mention the past again. I see. Li Chang suddenly understood. Qin Feiyong also looked at Yi Zhong in surprise and said, Master, you figured it out so quickly? So fast? Yi Zhong shook his head and said, More than 10,000 years have passed in the castle. That's right. Qin Feiyong patted his head. Although only half a month had passed outside, more than 15,000 years had passed in the castle. If he still couldn't figure it out after more than 15,000 years, then he was completely hopeless. More than 10,000 years. What does this mean? Li Chang looked at the two of them suspiciously. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, It means that I have a time array that is more powerful than Divine Dragon Island. More powerful than Divine Dragon Island? Li Chang was stunned. Yes. 1,000 years in a day. Qin Feiyong nodded. No way. Li Chang was dumbfounded. Divine Dragon Island's 500-year time array was already shocking enough, but now Qin Feiyong said that he still had a 1,000-year time array. What kind of monster was this? Qin Feiyong looked at Yi Zhong and said with a smile, Master, you continue to reconstruct your body and divine soul. Yi Zhong nodded and looked at Li Chang. Don't make a decision because of this old man. Follow your own heart and original intentions. Okay. Li Chang nodded. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and Yi Zhong disappeared. Li Chang looked at Qin Feiyong and lowered his head to ponder. Although Qin Feiyong said it clearly, the meaning was already very clear. He wanted him to betray the dragons. But the price of betraying the dragons was unimaginable. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, I won't force you. You can go back first and think about it. Aren't you afraid that I will tell Long Zun? Li Chang frowned. If you doubt someone, don't use him. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. You're quite bold. Li Chang took a deep breath and asked, When did you come to Divine Dragon Island? What is your purpose in coming to Divine Dragon Island? On the day you killed your way to the north. And at that time the Qin Feiyong you saw was not me. It was one of my subordinates in disguise. Qin Feiyong said. Not you. Li Chang was stunned. It's actually very simple. I asked my subordinates to pretend to be me and appear in front of you. As for myself, I mixed in with the disciples of the Dragon God Palace and took the opportunity to enter Divine Dragon Island. As for the reason why I took the risk to come in, I believe it's not difficult for you to guess. Qin Feiyong said. So that's how it is. You're really amazing. You actually hid it from everyone. Li Chang shook his head. This kid's mind was too terrifying. He asked, Is the reason you entered Divine Dragon Island for Yi Shuer and the others? Yes. Yi Shuer and Old Man Yi are both Master's relatives. I can't sit back and do nothing. And Chief Pavilion Master is also my subordinate now. I definitely can't ignore her life and death. Qin Feiyong nodded. Chapter 2851. The Chief Pavilion Master is also your subordinate now? Li Chang was shocked. Didn't Long Zun tell you? Qin Feiyong asked back. No. But I heard that the Chief Pavilion Master is one of the 4 emperors of the Dragon Slayer Palace. Li Chang said. That's right. Qin Feiyong said. That's not right. Since the Chief Pavilion Master is one of the 4 emperors of the Dragon Slayer Palace, why would he become your subordinate? Li Chang was suspicious. I believe you know that no matter where it is, there are internal conflicts and disputes. The same goes for the Dragon Slayer Palace. Qin Feiyong said. So that's the case. Li Chang nodded and said, just to save them, you took the risk and entered the Divine Dragon Island alone. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. Then have you thought about how to leave the Divine Dragon Island? Li Chang asked. Not yet. Qin Feiyong shook his head. No. Li Chang was stunned. He thought that Qin Feiyong had already thought of a way to leave the Divine Dragon Island, but he never expected that he didn't. In other words, he entered the Divine Dragon Island completely unprepared. Wasn't this equivalent to courting death? Aren't you afraid of death? Li Chang looked at Qin Feiyong and couldn't help but frown. Of course I'm afraid. Qin Feiyong smiled. Since you're afraid, why did you come to the Divine Dragon Island so impulsively? Li Chang said. I don't want to either. But there's no other way. I can only come first. I also believe that there's always a way out. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. Li Chang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the face of such a situation, he could still be so casual. He really didn't know how to describe this kid. However, this courage was worthy of praise. After thinking for a while, Li Chang made up his mind and looked up at Qin Feiyong saying, Then I'll take you to see Yi Shui and the others another day. The fact that he was able to say this clearly indicated his decision. Qin Feiyong naturally understood as well. The stone in his heart was finally lifted. He said, I've already seen them. What? You've already seen him? When did this happen? Li Chang was shocked. On the second day after I arrived at Divine Dragon Island, I went to look for them. Now Yi Shui and Old Man Yi are cultivating in the Dragon Palace. It's hard to get close to them. Qin Feiyong said. They are cultivating in the Dragon Palace? Li Chang was shocked. Yes. I think it's to make it easier to monitor them. Qin Feiyong nodded. Sigh. Li Chang let out a low sigh and said, Long Zun, aren't you afraid that the Chief Hall Master will be bitterly disappointed by doing this? Do you really think that Long Zun will consider Master's feelings? I'm afraid that in her eyes, Master is just a chess piece that can be used. Qin Feiyong sneered. Sigh. Hearing this, Li Chang could not help but sigh. It was really as the saying goes, the falling flowers are willing, but the heartless flowing water is heartless. The only headache I have now is how to get to the Chief Pavilion Master in the Divine Prison. This is the reason why I asked you to come here. Qin Feiyong looked at Li Chang expectantly. This Divine Prison. Li Chang frowned and lowered his head. After a while, he looked up at Qin Feiyong and shook his head. To be honest, I can't enter the Divine Prison either. A trace of disappointment suddenly appeared on Qin Feiyong's face. But, Li Chang said again. But what? Qin Feiyong was taken aback and hurriedly asked. Li Chang thought for a moment and said, Actually, we don't have to sneak into the Divine Prison. We can think of a way to let the dragons bring the Chief Pavilion Master out of the Divine Prison. As long as the Chief Pavilion Master leaves the Divine Prison, we will have a chance, right? When Qin Feiyong heard this, he immediately lowered his head and pondered. That's right. Why bother to enter the Divine Prison? He could think of another way to let the dragons take the initiative to bring the Chief Pavilion Master out of the Divine Prison. In this way there would be a lot of opportunities. Thinking of this, a plan immediately appeared in Qin Feiyong's mind. Li Chang pondered for a moment, shook his head and sighed. Thinking about it carefully, it seems quite difficult to let the dragons bring the Chief Pavilion Master out. It's not difficult. Qin Feiyong waved his hand. Li Chang looked at him in surprise. Qin Feiyong picked up the teacup and took a sip. He smiled and said, Why did the dragons imprison the Chief Pavilion Master? Why didn't they just kill her? Is there a need to think about it? Of course it's because they want to deal with you. After all, the Chief Pavilion Master is now your subordinate. For the dragons, this is a very good bargaining chip. Li Chang said. That's right. For the dragons, the Chief Pavilion Master is indeed a good bargaining chip, but at the same time, she is also a huge threat. Because as long as the Chief Pavilion Master doesn't die, anything can happen. Qin Feiyong said. What do you mean? Li Chang frowned. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, Isn't Long Zun dissatisfied with your performance in the north? Now you go and find her to make up for your mistakes. Go ahead. Li Chang leaned over. Qin Feiyong muttered a few words in a low voice. Is this okay? After listening, Li Chang frowned. Definitely. Qin Feiyong smiled. Li Chang pondered for a while, gritted his teeth and nodded. Well, after dawn I will go find Long Zun. Then you have to be careful. I don't want to use your life to exchange for the Chief Pavilion Master's life. Forget it. Qin Feiyong warned. Li Chang smiled slightly. This young man was indeed different. Dragons were unscrupulous in order to achieve their goals. But this man's first consideration was his safety. This was the difference. Qin Feiyong asked, Half a month ago, 1,000 of you went to the east, west, north and south respectively. How many of you came back later? At the mention of this, Li Chang's face was full of sadness, and he shook his head. Only the 250 people who went to the north came back alive, and the others are all dead. They're all dead? Qin Feiyong frowned and said, "Didn't I tell the ancestor not to kill them?" Qin Badian and the others did not make a move. It is said that the 250 people who went to the east died at the hands of the five-clawed golden dragon. Li Chang said, "This bastard." Qin Feiyong secretly cursed. Couldn't he be gentler? These were all undead stage experts, what a pity to kill them. As for the people in the west and south, at this point, Li Chang closed his eyes in pain and said, "They were killed by Long Zun himself." What? Qin Feiyong was shocked. A total of 500 people, she actually erased their souls without saying a word. She doesn't treat us as humans at all. This is also why I chose to help you. I really don't want to be like these people one day and die without knowing why. Li Chang sighed. Ruthless enough. Qin Feiyong whispered. Isn't that so? I've never seen a woman more ruthless than her. Li Chang shook his head. His eyes filled with disgust. Don't worry, it will all pass. Qin Feiyong smiled slightly. I hope so. Naturally, right now, I don't have much of an extravagant request. I only hope that I can contribute a little to the rise of mankind. I really don't want to see future generations like us being bullied by dragons and struggling at death's door. Li Chang said. If everyone thinks like you, then that's good. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Yeah. Our human race is not united in the first place. If everyone can let go of their ambitions and desires, even if the human race is not a match for the dragons, we won't fall to this point today. Just like this time, these 2 million people who came to the Divine Dragon Island with you. Look at them, what are they? I feel that in their eyes, being a lackey is something that brings glory to their ancestors. Li Chang sighed. There's nothing we can do about it. After all, not everyone has self-respect and pride. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. Li Chang shook his head and said with a smile, What about you? Why did you fight with the dragons until today? Me? Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. He said, I'm afraid you won't believe me if I tell you this. In the past, I had never thought of becoming enemies with the dragon clan. My initial goal in coming to the ancient realm was purely to search for my 2 ancestors. I really don't believe it. Li Chang said. But this is the truth. The initial conflict was also started by the dragons. They intended to deprive me of the power of my bloodline. You also know how important the power of bloodline is to a person. If I lose the power of my bloodline, I will become a cripple in an instant. Of course, I can't sit still and wait for death, so I started to deal with the dragons. In the end, the grudge became deeper and deeper. They wanted to get rid of me, and I also wanted to get rid of them. Qin Feiyong shrugged his shoulders and said very calmly. But as a listener, Li Chang felt that it was soul-stirring. As a young man from the lower realm, facing the pursuit of the dragons, the ruler of the ancient world, was a terrifying and despairing thing. If it were anyone else, they would have already given up resisting and obediently offered up the power of their bloodline. However, Qin Feiyong had never given up. Relying on his extraordinary perseverance and brain, he had walked all the way to today, and the heavens did not treat him unfairly. The current Qin Feiyong had already become a terrifying figure in the ancient world that no one dared to ignore. Even the powerful dragon race couldn't do anything about it. Qin Feiyong and Li Chang sat in the cave and chatted for a long time. They had a new understanding of each other. In Li Chang's heart, Qin Feiyong was a responsible and righteous young man. And in Qin Feiyong's heart, Li Chang was a person with ambition, ideals, and a sense of justice. It was just that in the past, when he followed the dragons, he had no choice but to hide these things. In short, that night, the two of them chatted happily, and even had a feeling that they regretted not having met earlier. Chapter 2852. The next day, early in the morning, Li Chang stood in front of his cave and scanned the mountains and rivers below. He took a deep breath and then disappeared in the direction of the Dragon Palace. At the same time, Qin Feiyong sat in the cave and looked at the teapot on the coffee table. He muttered, It seems that I can't casually take out this immortal dew in front of others in the future. Fortunately, it was Li Chang who came this time. If it was someone else, such as Long Zun, the consequences would be unimaginable. Putting away the tea set, Qin Feiyang took out the space-time gate. His eyes flickered. He remembered that he could open the space-time gate when he was in the internal sea. Could he open it now on Divine Dragon Island? If he could open the space-time gate, it would be easy to leave Divine Dragon Island. However, the current Divine Dragon Island was shrouded in a barrier. And the owner of this barrier was Ice Dragon. Would Ice Dragon be able to seal the teleportation of the Gate of Time and Space? Qin Feiyang did not dare to try now, because the opening of the space-time gate would cause too much of a commotion. He could only wait until he rescued the Chief Pavilion Master and take a gamble. Dragon Palace. Although the Dragon Palace was the most important place on Divine Dragon Island, there was no one guarding it. Of course, there was nothing strange about it. After all, the one who lived here was Long Zun, the strongest person in the ancient world. Who would dare to cause trouble here? And the Dragon Palace was a magnificent palace. The palace was more than 100 feet tall and was dazzling in gold and jade. There were stone pillars erected around it. Each stone pillar was engraved with a lifelike divine dragon. Above the main door, there was a sacred heavenly dragon engraved. Whoosh! A figure broke through the air and landed in front of the door of the Dragon Palace. It was Li Chang. Li Chang looked up at the tightly shut door of the Dragon Palace. His eyes were filled with awe. He knelt on the ground and said respectfully, "I am Li Chang. I have something to ask Lord Long Zun." "What is it?" "Soon." Long Zun's voice came from inside. "It's about the Chief Pavilion Master." Li Chang replied. Whoosh! That moment, a blurry figure of Long Zun descended outside the door. "Lord Long Zun." Li Chang bowed to the ground. "Get up." Long Zun said faintly. "I don't dare. This lowly one is actually here to receive his punishment." Li Chang knelt on the ground, not daring to move. "Receive punishment?" Long Zun was stunned. "Yes. When I faced Qin Batian and the Mermaid Emperor, my heart wavered a little. This should never have happened. Therefore, this lowly one has taken the initiative to come here and ask for punishment, Lord Dragon Sovereign." Li Chang lowered his head and said. Long Zun looked down at Li Chang and asked, "Is your confidence shaken? Or are you wavering?" "I don't dare to hide it from you, sir," Li Chang said while trembling with fear. "You're quite honest." Long Zun's tone was bone-chilling. Li Chang shivered. However, in the face of Qin Batian, the Mermaid Emperor, and Qin Feiyang, it is understandable that your confidence is shaken. After all, they're all stronger than you. As for the wavering of our position, seeing that you repented in time and took the initiative to admit your mistake, I won't bicker with you for now. But remember, there won't be a second time. Long Zun said coldly. "Thank you, Lord Dragon Sovereign, for not killing me." Li Chang cried out gratefully. Long Zun said, "Then tell me now, what do you want to say about the Chief Pavilion Master?" Li Chang got up, looked at Long Zun, and said respectfully, "Lord, aren't we going to kill the Chief Pavilion Master? Why should we kill her? She's now a bargaining chip in our hands." Long Zun said. "But I don't think so." Li Chang shook his head. "Why do you say that?" Long Zun frowned. "Lord, you know Qin Feiyang. Although he's young, he's actually very cunning and capable. What if he thinks of a way to save the Chief Pavilion Master?" Li Chang arrived. "Save the Chief Pavilion Master?" Long Zun was slightly taken aback and sneered. "You must be kidding. Not to mention entering the Divine Penitentiary to save the Chief Pavilion Master. He can't even enter the Divine Dragon Island. I know that Lord Dragon God has set up a barrier on the Divine Dragon Island, but Lord Dragon Sovereign still can't be careless. Look at Qin Feiyang. From the northern region to the Divine Land, which of the things he did were not beyond our imagination and expectations? Finish it in one sentence. Qin Feiyang is full of too many possibilities, so when facing him we must never be as sloppy as before," Li Chang said. Long Zun couldn't help but frown when he heard this. Recalling what had happened in the past few years, it was really as Li Chang had said. Everything that Qin Feiyang had done was something that they had not expected at all. They also thought that it was impossible. But in the end, Qin Feiyang did it. For example, the 10 great divine artifacts. In their opinion, Qin Feiyang wanted to snatch the 10 great divine artifacts from them, which was simply a joke. But in the end, the 10 great divine artifacts successively went to Qin Feiyang. There was also the battle in the North Sea Star River. Whether it was Long Zun or the great ancestral dragons, they all vowed that they would be able to take down Qin Feiyang this time. However, in the end, the ancient castle merged with the Black Tortoise realm, which went beyond the boundary of the divine artifacts, and caught them off guard. Then there was the Hell King. The Hell King was a killing trap that they set up specifically for Qin Feiyang. But when Qin Feiyang entered the Hell King, he actually got the recognition of the Blood Demon clan and was like a fish in water. In the end, it was them, the dragons, who were killed. There was also the appearance of Qin Feiyang, which was also full of miracles. Not to mention others, even the dragons, after entering the Hell King, had to wait for 1,000 years when the Hell King closed before they could come out. However, Qin Feiyang slipped out in advance. These things that would never happen in their eyes happened one after another to Qin Feiyang. What did this mean? It meant that, as Li Chang said, this person was full of too many possibilities. There couldn't be any carelessness. Who? Long Zun took a deep breath and looked at Li Chang. Then tell me, how should I deal with the chief pavilion master? Kill him as soon as possible. Li Chang's eyes flashed with killing intent. Long Zun heard this and lowered his head in silence. Lord. Actually, in my opinion, the chief pavilion master is not very valuable, Li Chang said. What do you mean? Long Zun was curious, because the chief pavilion master didn't follow Qin Feiyang for a long time, and in the past, she and Qin Feiyang were opponents, so the relationship between them is purely a superior-subordinate relationship. Unlike others, such as Hua Yi and the five-clawed golden dragon, they have a life-and-death relationship with Qin Feiyang. If we were to capture them and use them to threaten Qin Feiyang, they would most definitely be excellent bargaining chips. That's because it would be impossible for Qin Feiyang to watch as they died. But the chief pavilion master, to be honest, I guess in Qin Feiyang's eyes she is at most a chess piece. Moreover, the chief pavilion master was subdued by Qin Feiyang, so Qin Feiyang naturally took over the treasure pavilion. So now in Qin Feiyang's eyes, the chief pavilion master has no value except for her strength. Li Chang said. Makes sense. Long Zun nodded. So I suggest to kill the chief pavilion master as soon as possible in order to avoid any trouble. After all, the chief pavilion master is not weak. If she escapes, she will be a great threat. Moreover, we have to kill the chief pavilion master in the cultivation place. Li Chang said. Why do we have to kill her in the cultivation place? Long Zun was suspicious. Kill one to warn the others. Li Chang's eyes flickered with a cold light as he looked at Long Zun and said, this time, the ancestral dragons have brought back 2 million disciples from the outside. May I ask Lord Long Zun, among these 2 million people, are you sure that all of them are sincerely following us dragons? Long Zun raised his eyebrows and said, continue. I also believe that most of them must be sincerely following us dragons, but we can't rule out that there are some who are purely here for resources. So, we have to completely eliminate this. And killing the chief pavilion master in front of them is undoubtedly a very deterrent move, Li Chang said. Firstly, we can get rid of this root of trouble. Secondly, we can also intimidate those disciples. Mother, this is indeed a good idea to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The prince of the dragons appeared in front of Long Zun. His whole person had an indescribable elegance and freedom. Greetings, Your Highness. Li Chang hurriedly bowed. No need to be so polite. The Prince of the Dragons smiled at Li Chang. Long Zun looked at the Prince of the Dragons and said, You agree with Li Chang's suggestion? I agree. And let me do this. The Prince of the Dragons laughed. You? Long Zun was stunned. I have been cultivating in seclusion since I was young. Almost no one knows of my existence. Even some of the young dragons don't know that the dragons have a prince like me. My sense of existence is too low. And now, I have broken through to the minor imperishable stage, and I should let the world know that the dragons not only have you, Long Zun, the princess of the dragons, the 10 ancestral dragons, but also me, the prince of the dragons. The prince of the dragons smiled faintly. However, in this calm tone, there was an astonishing domineering aura. Long Zun heard this and remained silent, as if he was hesitating. Li Chang said cautiously, "Your Highness, do you still need to personally take action for such a small matter? I don't need to tell you about the position of the chief pavilion master in the divine land. Is killing her a small matter?" The Prince of the Dragons asked. Li Chang was taken aback and nodded with a smile. "Listening to Your Highness, it seems that it is not a small matter. And I also want to officially meet this Qin Feiyang." The Prince of the Dragons looked up at the sky and whispered, Long Zun looked at the Prince of the Dragons in surprise. The Prince of the Dragons said, "Mother, don't be nervous. I won't take the risk. I'm just sending the head of the chief pavilion master to him." "You call this not taking the risk?" Long Zun frowned. "Mother, you have to believe in your son. Your son wants to leave and Qin Feiyang can't keep me." The Prince of the Dragons smiled slightly, and his gentle eyes were full of confidence. Long Zun shook his head and said, "All right then, I'll leave this matter to you. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."